I mean, I teach students and they're like to them, a Snapchat conversation
is a real conversation.
And it could just be like a picture of them and then a little text and then the other person sends a picture of themselves. And I mean, it's interactive, but it's like,
it's a weird world to live in now.
Weird.
Yeah.
I hope I'm still like,
Wait,
I'm going to be that old school guy.
How old are you?
29.
Okay.
How old are you?
30. Yes, 30.
30?
30. I say you lose track after 30.
I
already lost track
turning 28, and I'm like, wait a second, I am 28.
I had to question myself.
I always forget.
I never
when people
understood
ask.
that. Like when you ask your parents or you're talking to someone older, they're like, yeah, I think I'm like 30. Or they're like, I'm like 45 or something. I'm like, how do you not know your age? You know when you're growing
I think
up,
it just matters less and less.
Well, you stop celebrating birthdays as much, too. You might go out for dinner with close family or friends. And then
I think I like reflect more on my birthdays now.
Yeah.
But I don't you know what I mean? It's not like, I've never been
25 there's literally a quarter life crisis, and nobody used to talk about it. It's usually the midlife crisis where it's like the wife and leave it and whatever. You're like,
quarter life
get the car.
More important.
It really is because it's what do I want to do? What do I want to accomplish with the rest of my life? And for me, it was asking really difficult questions.
And it's like, am I doing the right stuff now to get?
Yeah. And I find I keep coming full circle back to fitness, sport, recreation in a lot of different ways. And I'm actually super excited. Just obstacle course racing. I've been searching for that next competitive thing.
Yeah.
And I looked at, there's like, do you do bodybuilding? And I'm like, I don't want to obsess over the aesthetics. And then there's the other side of things, like touch football is great, but I don't see pursuing like flag or touch football as a 26-year-old.
That's almost like a social thing now if you go do it.
Yeah, I'm going to go out with the guys and have some beers after, and that's really the purpose.
That. Like talking about guys that were like in the SEALs or like on a football team or whatever it was, but you start missing that. And if you don't, a lot of people start getting into their career and whatever else, and you don't realize how important that is to like have during your week.
Well, just have those other things, those passions, those things that drive you. Because, there's something to me that it's like if people, if you get caught up in the 9 to 5 and then all of a sudden it's like buy a house, like get married, have a kid and white picket fence and hopefully a garage. I want that, but at the same time, I want to accomplish amazing things. And it's the trade-off of like, I'd rather live as much as I can right now, and that will come. Yeah. That will come with time.
And you're a better person in that. When you do get into that, you're a much better person if you've done everything else leading into it, or if you just kind of get into it quick and start checking off the boxes. Then you haven't really like.
Sometimes people just coast though. Yeah. You see people that they're content.
Man. We're gonna have a good podcast. Man.
I'm super excited.
A couple of things before we begin. Just make sure your phone's on mute so it vibrates even off, just because the vibration on the table.
Yeah, it's all.
The microphone picks it up. If you talk with your hands like me, just try to avoid slapping the table.
Jayse is the worst for hitting the table.
Can I put this on here?
Yeah, that works. Quiet. That's why I put it there. And then microphone-wise, the array is on the front, so it picks up from the front of the microphone. Mm-hmm. And so the closer you are, the better. So if you can get it like a few inches to 6 inches away, that'd be perfect. And then just be aware of it. Some people like to start rocking back and forth or side to side, and they forget the microphone's there, which is a good thing.
I have a little bit of like real, when people say they have ADHD, like I actually have a little bit of ADHD. So if I do move or like I'm instantly just like, oh yeah, something that's, you'll start to notice it.
So you got the Michael Phelps gene. That's what.
If you sit through a movie with me, this is where I noticed it. Actually, I can watch a movie, but I'm like constantly grabbing for things. Like if I have a popcorn or whatever, and I change positions probably every 10 seconds, like slightly. Whereas other people, like they won't move once, and it's just.
I can kind of relate to that. Like I don't have ADHD. I don't think I can keep like my attention on something for quite a long time, but I'm very fidgety. I can't sit still. I'm always playing with something. I'm always doing something, like cracking my fingers.
It could be, yeah.
Any of my clients who train with me, and they know I have my pen. I'm flipping my pen throughout the entire training session.
Are you a personal trainer?
Yeah. At Good Life on Kenniston.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been doing that.
Good Life on Grant. is so nice.
It really
but
is.
I'm so disappointed in the crowd that it's like welcoming. I'm just like,
I can't
I
speak
walk
to
in
that.
there and
I
I'm
can't.
like, you were talking
I
about
can.
bodybuilding crowd
Yeah, you guys
and stuff,
can.
and I'm like,
I'll just close my ears here.
and being someone that like trains or like, there's purpose to my training, or some of the things might look a little, I don't know, whatever. Like it's all different.
His mindset too.
Yeah.
What I really liked about today was just the sense of community and the people that are there. It seems to attract the kind of people that that resonate with me too, that are just like driven, want to better themselves, and just like enjoy having fun with it.
You guys got to promise me on a Thursday night you come out to Weapon Factory. You got to come out to my class.
Weapon Factory.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Where is that?
So like the idea, like in football, like you call a guy a weapon. Like, he's like, oh, that guy's like, he's a weapon. He's kind of versatile in like everything. You can put him in any position, or like, like Cam Newton's a weapon. Like that guy's, he's his quarterback, but like he's.
What do you think of his mentality though?
I love some things about him. Like I love that he gives a ball to a kid every touchdown he gets, and like he'll pay the fine, but he just knows that like that kid's gonna remember it forever. Like,
yeah, that's awesome.
See, but
that kind of stuff.
What comes before?
I know.
It's.
But is that one thing he did once, just as a joke with his friends, and then all of a sudden, it's all different.
It's that, to me, it's that level of confidence and cockiness.
Right.
And I've used him as an example of a cocky quarterback.
Yeah.
Because it seems to be a little bit more about him.
And you see when his game's off is when he can't.
And so it's about him. And so when he's down, it just deflates everybody else around him because he gets in that negative mindset.
Yeah.
And you're less likely to want to bring that guy back up because it is about him.
Yeah.
Whereas a guy like Tom Brady, he's had average receivers around him his whole career, but they run good routes, have great hands, and he makes everybody around him better.
Okay.
And so that's the confidence side of things. He's still like it gets to that point that's like on the edge, but you got to be.
I know. Yeah,
it's a fine
just
line.
Trying to have fun. Like, is he trying to? Some people perform better when they're like just in a certain mindset, or is he? I totally see where you're coming from. I was listening to Marshall Falk on a podcast the other day.
I love Marshall,
and he was talking about like team dynamics, and you can tell right away if the team appreciates their quarterback or if he leads by example or whatever else. Like after a play, are people helping up the quarterback or whatever, and they're trying to figure out why Arizona wasn't re-signing or something like that. He was just talking about dynamics and everything, and it's
really interesting.
I never played football, but like I've played so many sports, and I appreciate football as a whole, and like the backgrounds behind like the culture of it.
Yeah.
Some of the players.
One of the things I liked about football that I think I see it in a different way. I thought it was the closest thing to the gladiatorial arena, and now I've gotten a little bit into UFC, and I find that's maybe the direct thing, but it's very much war or battle because there's the same. I've talked about it before, but Sun Tzu's Art of War. So that's what football is to me. Is just it's a chess game of just trying to figure out how can we move our pieces to go score. Right. So it's
everyone
really
has
that
a plan.
cognitive.
Yeah.
Everyone has a plan, and someone's plan isn't working because both plans can't work. So it's like
100%
readjusting, right?
Yeah,
and that's it's kind of an interesting concept. You're like, well, both teams came in with a plan, but they're not both going to work. Or else you get those games.
See, and you get people who don't understand football and are like, well, they barely play, right? Half the time spent setting up and getting the play ready. But I'm like, that's part of the beauty of football, right? It's like that chess game. You got to move those pieces around, and it's just like, well, is this going to work now, right?
And it's like you on the line battling with like you're almost having your own individual like one-on-one battles, right? And at the end of the game, like you have so much respect usually for that other person. It's like same as OCR. So I'm doing a race, and you'll have a battle like for an hour. You're just going through like this like constant like jockeying for position. They're better at an obstacle. You get ahead of them here. They make a mistake. Like no one's fitness is the same. Like we both have different fitnesses, and depending on the course, we could end up close to the same at the end, right? You see all different body types do well, so
that's cool.
Super cool. And then after you're like, you just appreciate they're making you better, they're challenging you. So
yeah, I think I realized to me it was trying to find optimal fitness, and I went, there's no way at 200 pounds or 205 back when in February or March when I signed up that I was gonna be at an optimal level. So I went, and it's been a natural progression though. It's just been increasing training, still eating right, doing the right things. But I've started to see the weight come off, and then I'm like, okay, 185 for this first race. But I even think, I don't know what's sustainable for me, but probably somewhere between, I don't see it ever being under 175 just because the way that I carry weight and the way that I train and things too. And yeah, but it's trying to find whatever works for you is really the way you got to do it. But it's led me on this tangent of just trying so many new things and just like looking at races and seeing what kind of skills that I need, and even keeping up to date with the Spartan website when they send out those even training tips and things and see what people need to do.
It's cool to have. That's the hardest thing. And like to hear that you signed up early, that's the hardest thing. It's like people are thinking about it. People are like, I kind of want to do this, or I want to start a podcast, or I want to do this, do that. And it's like, that's the hardest thing now, is to make people make that first action.
That's what they say.
And then all of a sudden,
hardest part is to get going.
Yeah.
To get started.
And it's, we can talk. There's so much about getting it started, like how to.
We are live.
Speaking of getting it started, I've been recording for basically since you got in here. I just recorded everything.
So football fans, they'll be happy.
I like to get the casual conversation in at the beginning too. So it's a nice segue into the actual podcast. We're not starting so cold.
Yeah.
But we're recording now, so maybe we should introduce the stranger over here.
I don't know how to say your last name, but Mikhail Gerylo or Gerylo?
Gerylo. Although it reads like Mikhail, it's actually Mikhail. Yes.
Mikhail.
But people call me
Interesting.
Mick.
I've never heard that enunciation or pronunciation of it.
I was named after Russian president, man of the year, Mikhail Gorbachev. So he spelt it like that, and he pronounced it.
Are you Russian?
Ukrainian Russian.
Russian. Okay.
Polish. It's all kind of in one. Mikhail is like the Russian version of Michael. So it's very popular out there, or versions of it.
Yeah. But it's like my middle name's Johannes, which is the Dutch name for John.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess.
Yeah. I've been correcting people my whole life.
That's interesting. I've never heard it.
But Mick is just, it's
easier
quick
for us Westerners.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. So what is the most interesting event that's happened in your life recently?
Well, recently I just got back from New Zealand. So a few opportunities came up in the past year and basically gave me a little bit of a freedom in my year. And I started really like taking a couple seconds to sit back. And we were talking about this before, like just using this time before you really have tons of responsibilities and everything. And so I had this, it's really hard when you have full freedom and you feel like you need to make the exact right decision of where should I go. But I knew I wanted to go and live and work somewhere, live in a small town or a city where I could actually not be mobile. I feel like I've done the traveling where you're checking out the places, you're seeing a place for 2 or 3 days, but I wanted to get to know people where I was living and get to know the area. So found this little mountain town in New Zealand when I moved out there, reached out beforehand, started networking with some people, got a job, still lining up some of my passions. So I didn't want to get a job that was just, serving or whatever else, just not something that is a true passion of mine. So needed to be something fitness related, something with kids. So I got an opportunity and went over there, and it's an interesting mentality when you kind of have 6 months to get settled in, and then you start to learn about the area. And obviously, like, I'm a big trail runner, and there's mountains. It was like,
I can only imagine in New Zealand. That's where they filmed so
Lord
many
of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings, and isn't what's it called? Game of Thrones. I think they do some of it.
I'm sure they must. They they record all over or film all over.
Like I literally climbed the mountain that they CGI effect Mount Doom in.
Oh really?
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Like I there's the
Did you destroy the
place.
ring?
No, there's no evil eye above the
Frodo, no.
But it's a community where in Manitoba you don't usually get a lot of it, like outdoor, and getting into Spartan racing, like you meet so many people that want to get outdoors, want to do some adventures and everything, and it was something I was a little frustrated with living here for a while. I've kind of figured out how to deal with it, and but being out there and every second person you see outdoors is like, hey, I want to go run this mountain, or I want to go into a race or do that kind of stuff. Everyone wants to adventure. So doing those things out there, you started to easily meet the right people, like-minded people, and traveling solo kind of challenges you to put yourself out there and not get comfortable just because you have someone to hang out with already. And I really like that. I think it's important for everyone to experience that. And it was opposite season, so skipped out on the Winnipeg winter. And
that's the way to do it.
Yeah, it was like plus.
Living the dream.
I mean, I had to stop saying like to people that it was plus 30 when it was like so cold here at the time, talking to people. But yeah.
That's what I found with traveling too, is especially in a place like Winnipeg, escaping the Winnipeg bubble is one of the best things you can do, just to see other culture, other people, other landscape. One of my big trips, which I wish I would have done the same and been able to stay for 6 months or a year or do that. It hasn't come up as an opportunity yet, but it's likely something that I'll do. Anyways, when I was in university, I went to Australia for it was a volunteerism trip. So we volunteered for 2 weeks and did some nature conservation work, which I quickly realized people are who I want to make a difference with. And I respect people that work in nature or with animals or whatever it is. But there's something about actually having that human connection that I crave and helping make a positive difference with people as much as possible. But it was ingraining myself in a culture, and I was traveling with a lot of Americans and Canadians. So it was people that were volunteering from all across North America. And so it was kind of a shame because I didn't get to actually meet a ton of Aussies and get to conversate with them and ingrain myself in any place, because we were bouncing around, especially during the tourism part. We would go to Byron Bay or Fraser Island for 2 days and then go to the next one and Cairns and do a bunch of cool things. This is where I went bungee jumping and surfing for the first time. But you didn't get that cultural side.
Right.
Then from there, I actually had there was an optional thing you could throw on, and I went to Fiji, and that was where we got to just be it was a resort island, but ended up making friends with the manager of the island, or one of the main people, and it just made the stay that much more incredible, because he would bring us over and we'd do like make coconut bracelets and just different projects and do turtle racing, and it was just having that openness and talking with somebody and getting to learn. The first night I was there, they did the kava ceremony, which is like a little bit of an alcohol beverage, a little bit of they say it has some hallucinogenic effects, but it's more just the social thing of sitting down, and that's what chiefs used to do. So there's the traditional ceremony, and then there's just sitting around drinking as you would at a bar or anything, and just. But because the first night we did that, and we just talked for hours, and ended up I stayed there for like 2 hours as groups would come in and out, and yet it was great to make that connection and then just learn about the culture. And it was such a beautiful culture because they live the island lifestyle, so nothing runs on time. It's more so just when the sun's in the sky, all right, let's go play volleyball, let's go kayak around the island, let's just do some things. And obviously we're on a resort island, so that's not necessarily how everything would work.
If you try to do that here,
people would look at you like you're insane.
Yeah. But there it's just a regular thing. It's and I'm always someone that likes the mindset of being somewhere early. And so I'll try and be somewhere early, because then I see my mindset like level-headed and not rushing. And if you're as busy as like most people are now, you realize how taxing that is, being in this like constant rush. But to them, being late is like, it's just
when the tide rolls in.
Yeah, it's like everyone's okay with it, right? Yeah. And it just things get
Sounds
done.
A lot less stressful.
Yeah, and it just you get used to it, right? There's no expectation to do it, but it's not like they're lazy. It's just like they're like trying to just enjoy as they're going through their day. But you talk about meeting local people, and man, local people have such a cool story, like where they started, if they're running certain things or whatever else. It's interesting to see how they ended up where they are and doing what they have, and getting to know that. And like you said, that's when you really like feel like people that travel a lot have less initial judgment, have a lot of empathy towards different situations and everything. And I'm way more of an experience-based traveler than like sites or to say I did something, right? It's more just the experience. And if I recorded a podcast down there or whatever else, like even though I can do it here, you meet the right people, and
that's incredible.
You kind of have to sit back and be like, how did I end up in this spot right now talking to this person? I'm enjoying it so much and I'm learning a lot, and they're like your best friend for a day or two, and then it's like life goes on, but you learn something from them, you take something they said, and you're just like appreciating the moment. And
well, that's probably where that empathy comes from, being more empathetic and sympathetic with those. Is you're not clashing, but you're meeting all these kinds of people with all these different kinds of experiences. So it kind of opens up your perspective a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
Whereas here, we kind of all have a similar, not the same, but a similar, we all get up. It's very, like you said, very much more rushed here.
Yeah.
We all have to get to work on time. We all have to deal with the winters here.
Right.
All the flat land that we can't really do much with.
Tell me about it. Yeah.
On the flip side, it seems like even living in North America and even living that type of lifestyle where it's all time-based, but it can be really stressful when you have so much on the go. And like you said, like when you're super busy. So maybe I wanted to know a little bit about how you relax and like what you do to just like unwind and maybe even find that zen.
Right. I think honestly, like I'm still learning, like as much as I'll talk about like certain things and even travel and everything, like I haven't figured anything out, but I'd like to think like I have the right mindset to at least reflect and get better continuously. So I think like in terms of like chilling out or relaxing, like New Zealand also had a lot of downtime, right? Because I didn't have all of my daily things or people needing things from me and everything, right? I had my job, and then I had all this open time, and it was kind of time away from that really makes you realize I'm not being lazy because I'm making time for like something I enjoy to do, whether it's reading or whatever else, right? It's almost like I can be a better person for everyone else because I'm refreshed and I can really like hit when it's time to work or time to be busy. Like then I'm in the right mindset and I'm like strong with it instead of just flying around, right? Yeah. So running is like a huge thing for me. I can listen to a podcast. Obviously, like my training is pretty specific, so sometimes a run is not enjoyable. Like it's, if you're doing run training, but once a week, one of my runs is just get out and enjoy it. And, even the fact of like going around and noticing like some really nice view or noticing something, like really pointing it out and almost like interacting with it for a second and realizing it. And so I think running is like as much as for some people it wouldn't be. Yeah. It's like such an enjoyment, and there's no interruption, right? I don't bring my phone with me. I don't bring anything. I think that's really what you need to do, whether it's whatever you find that you enjoy doing. It's like you can focus your time and there's no interruptions to it.
Do you listen to music or anything at
Usually,
all?
Yeah. So, I changed my mindset. Like I listen to a lot of different types of genres and everything, but yeah, it depends on the mood. And I think I really do find enjoyment in music. Like a lot of people tell me like they like the way that music like affects me. Like I still really get into it. And so yeah, it's that or a good podcast. Yeah, so for me, like we talk about like finding like-minded people, and there was that frustration for a while getting into Spartan race and being at such a high level and going to these races and meeting all these people who are like self-driven and really giving back through experience and knowledge and everything, then you come back here and, you know, you don't really have it around you all the time, right? And, but you start to realize you can be exposed to certain people and you meet the right people. They start introducing you to the right groups. And podcasts were also a good way for me to almost intrinsically have a conversation with someone, but not be part of it. Like, so I listened to a couple obstacle racing podcasts and I listened to a lot of the guys that I race against or whatever else, right? And listening to that, maybe I'm not training with them during the week or talking with anyone about this sport that I'm like really into, but at least you get your fix of like, yeah,
you can get into their mentality a little bit too.
But I mean, I delve into lots of different podcasts, and it's obviously nice to hear when you recommended a few. Like, we listen to some of the same ones. I mean, there are the classic ones you get into when you're first. Whatever you're into, if you're into self-improvement, there are ones that kind of stick out. They just naturally get recommended to you first, and you start with those, and then you start to realize who you really like.
What are a couple of your core podcasts that you listen to?
I listen to, I mean, aside from some of the basic, I listen to Ed Milet. You know who that is?
No.
So you guys would love him. Actually, he's had, like, let's say, Lewis Howes on his podcast. He's had lots of really big names, but he also comes from a sport background. So he gets those, you know, he'll have Marshall Falk on there. He'll have Maria Sharapova. And so
top tier
athletes. It brings top athletes, but it's also more about just like how to really own everything in your life, not just like business, not just for, you know, it's a
holistic view on life and just development and
I would say there's a few obstacle race ones that are really good just because you get on those top athletes that maybe I race against, but I don't know their backgrounds. And
did you listen to the Spartan Up one?
Yeah, I occasionally, I
pick and choose.
Yeah, it's if I'm interested in the guest, and then I guess School of Greatness, Lewis Howes, that's a great one. Just trying to think of like an interesting one that people haven't heard of. I listen to Man Talks, which is based on so many different topics, from like psychology to relationships to, you know, self-fulfilling prophecy, whatever it is. He just gets the experts on different things. I was listening to a really good one on like leadership, and obviously I'm in so many different aspects of my life. I have leadership as part of it, and it's so interesting to me because, you know, if you have a good leader in front of you, how well you can affect people. And like you were saying, you need to be in front of people. It's kind of what keeps magnetizing towards me too. So
yeah,
that's incredible.
So I wanted to know a little bit of how you set out on this Spartan journey and what drove you maybe even into sport and fitness initially, and then that transition to training for Spartan races.
Actually, like, how'd you get into running to begin with? Like, what's that whole background about?
I think running initially was soccer. So I got into soccer. I was always a kid that was not the tallest, the biggest, but definitely not like this, you know, those kids that just have trouble picking up anything. I think I picked up things well, and I always had a mind for sport, but I was never that like top level athlete naturally. So I think I learned good work ethic to really be at a top level. I played everything from water polo to snowboarding to, you know.
Just not football.
Just not football, yeah. So soccer took me to university. I played a year there. So running, you realize how much soccer is good for your running.
Of course, yeah.
And I'm also very, like, I teach phys ed, so I know a lot about, like, motor development. And, you know, they say the two best sports to put your kids in at a young age are gymnastics and soccer. And there's very different developmental reasons why.
Yeah.
But in terms of, like, self-tracking and then also connecting certain body parts with your mind and everything.
Sure.
So yeah, I didn't know that, but looking back, it's nice to.
It's as a trainer, people who are runners.
Yeah.
You actually, started to see a lot of postural issues in terms of running because they're always moving forward. And the biggest thing I actually noticed that kind of connected a lot of runners who never did anything, like if you do gymnastics, that alleviates a lot of those postural issues. But someone who just runs or just played soccer, one of the other trainers at my gym does, and you should watch him squat. He can barely do a squat.
Right.
Because you're just so used to moving forward. They're not used to that bending movement.
Yeah.
And it's just like they have the abs are there. Like they look like they're in really good shape.
Right.
It's just that postural part is just not there.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Like you look at the Olympic developmental systems now in different countries, and now everyone's starting to realize that like multi-sport athletes are way better suited long term than those athletes that just focused on one. So again, I didn't know this, but I played provincial team handball, which is like, if you've played handball, I mean, it's such a great sport.
Favorite sport.
Running, really, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, so I mean, that's like, you add the contact in there, but then you have like these super athletic movements, lots of jumping, running, body awareness, like tons of different positions you can play. So, but I was never a track guy. I was never a cross country guy. And then I think talking about how I got into this, I think after high school ends, like that's the biggest thing is you have all these sports available to you and all your friends are doing them, whatever. And then people get into their first job and and you might start moving away from athletics or activity. You know, you might not play on a team sport, but, and I loved training like an athlete in the gym. So here was me, like 130 pounds in university. They had a gym there. So I walk in there and start just moving machines around for a while, and it wasn't really for me. So started training athletically and started getting into running and jumped into a half marathon and did like pretty well for your first one. And, but I said, like, I don't want to be just a pavement runner. Like, I like that versatile sport and like playing so many different sports. I like that, you know, I could take a swing at a volleyball, jump really high, and then go out and run 3K and then play soccer. And so started looking into obstacle racing and started looking at where competitive ones were, because I didn't want to just do it for fun. Although obstacle racing, the majority of people do just go out there just to have fun. So I got into Spartan race and traveled over to Ottawa and went into my first one. And then, you know, so many different things happen, but you remember your first race so vividly in so many situations. And I finished no preparation, like didn't even know how to put a timing chip on my lace and had no nutrition for it. It was like a 3-hour race. I was wearing my Nike shoes for a mountain race. Anyways, finished, didn't know who any of the top guys were. Ended up getting third by like 4 seconds. Like it was a race to the finish. So come in, and this is how I got started. As someone that was better than me, but someone that was just out to improve everyone and share knowledge. He came up to me and said, "Hey, who are you? Like, we know all the top guys in Canada that race here, and we don't recognize you." And I was like, "Yeah, my name's Mick. Like, it's my first race. I have no idea what's going on."
Hey, guys.
He was like, "Well, first of all, you're never allowed to run another race in those shoes." Like, he's like, "I will give you my shoes if they're the same size." And then he's like, "If you did this well in your first race, not knowing anything, like, you need to think about taking this seriously and get into it." So the next year I went and did 3, and I went around Canada to a couple more. And then I actually started looking at, okay, what are the obstacles? What's the terrain like? Like, how do I train for this? And like we were talking earlier, it's so much easier to go to the gym or make time for something when you have purpose to it, whether it is like fitness or training or your job or anything. It's like if there's an end goal without an end goal, right? Like you have certain almost like steps and stages, but there's never a completion.
No,
I'm like not a believer.
It's an ever evolving goal, as I like to think of it. That just keeps going.
You can't be the best at it. There's always something to improve at. That's why I love it.
Or someone's always going to be better than you, right? And that's what I love about it. And even if you somehow end up at the top, you got to treat yourself like you're second best.
And the races are always changing, and there's always new obstacles and new courses, and it's you start to realize, and this sport has taught me so much about everything, right? So it's just you just start relating it to your life, and it's interesting to kind of say that, but like I really like you see how your mind changes. So it's interesting when you stop, you look at a situation, and all of a sudden you're in your day job or something happens, and you're like,
one of my favorite things with running was I started last year and would end up running about an hour or so and hit 8 to 10 miles at once I got comfortable with it. It started with going out for 20 minutes and being gassed because I was never a runner. I was more, the football training regimen was more so in the gym, lift heavy things, eat a bunch of food, and run a bunch of sprints because you just want that. You want to be able to, every play, you're going to go balls out and you're going to go run into somebody. So it's a little bit of that crazy mentality that you're going to go hit somebody and you probably have to play through pain and use that adrenaline, but then you got to be strong and you got to be able to sprint. And so like I'd never ran long distances before. So it was initially 20 minutes was as far as I could go and I was huffing and puffing. And then all of a sudden you get a little bit better and more comfortable with it. But my favorite thing was I was managing a restaurant at the time, and obviously you have to deal with fast-paced, stressful situations from time to time. And my favorite part of running was this is the hardest thing I'm going to do with my day. Nothing's going to come close to just pushing on. And I'd come from the background. My mom actually has run marathons. It's funny, I don't even attribute this, but she's run half marathons.
Nice, good for her.
Probably for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
She's now doing, she's taken a little step back and she's doing the relay.
Yeah.
I'm going to run the first leg in that and then run the full, which this will be my first full marathon coming up too. Never thought I would do that. But so I guess the running comes a little bit from that. But we used to do interval training when I was young. I did like a little bit of cross country, but nothing crazy, just run a couple of miles. And so do like 10 and 1 or 8 and 1. But now just learning and being able to push through and just keep going the entire time, there's something about that mentality that it's now I can sink into runs and just if it's one of those enjoyable runs, I don't think of it. I just put on my playlist. And I like the way that you said that there's different music. I always build different playlists for almost anything because there's the working out in the gym, depending on what I'm doing. But if I'm lifting heavy things, I want somebody angry and yelling in my ear. So it's going to be hard rock or metal. And then when I go for runs, I might have an angry run where I just want to go as fast as possible and just push it. And so kind of the same mentality. But then I would say the introspective playlists that are just sink into the run and long drawn out songs and things like Glitch Mob or I've really gotten into called Emancipator, but just these long, it's like electronic songs, but with like these nice, peaceful, like
running is so like such a character building thing, right? And running doesn't get easier. Like you just get fitter and faster, but it doesn't get easier.
And you can always make it harder too.
Yeah, so it's really cool because you almost need a stronger mind once you get better at running. And then I always tell people, I'm like, just like anything else, if you want to improve at it, you have to expose yourself and your body to like the stimulus that is challenging. And some people, I would say, if there are runners out there and they keep going back into running, like I hate running because I always get hurt and people just get so excited and start too much too soon, right? You need to build up into it and then slowly understand it. And then also not just go out for a run. There needs to be a purpose to your run. You can have those like volume runs and a slow, easy mile build up can make it like, there's a reason why Olympic trial 5K runners still run 9-mile easy runs. Like there's a lot of scientific like research to building a base, right? And it doesn't have to be at that like lactic threshold pace, right? But you're not going to get better at anything if you always do it the same way. Just like bench press, sometimes I'm talking to these people that are freaks in the gym and then they're like, oh, I can't run. It's like, well, if you put as much like effort and purpose into running as you did, let's say bench press, you would see improvements as well. But, you know, same thing as bench press. You want to get stronger, you got to go lower reps, expose your muscles to like a heavier weight, a more comfortable, like a different weight, right? And then once you get stronger and you rebuild, all of a sudden you can do more of that new weight at higher rep. It's same thing as running. You need to expose yourself at shorter periods, at faster paces, so that your body gets used to it, and then slowly that gap starts getting smaller and smaller in between your long runs and your shorter rep runs.
Yeah, I know. When I used to running is initially how I lost weight. That's how I got introduced into the gym and everything. Actually, was through running. I used to be overweight. I was 355 pounds. Wow. I lost 150 pounds just by running. Yeah. And I'd never been a runner before in my life. And this was probably when I was about 21, 22 years old. And the first day I remember running a block and I was exhausted. Yeah. And over that year and a half, I slowly got up to 10K. And eventually, like the first 6 months, I think I was running in training shoes. I had no idea what the difference between any shoes were. And eventually got like just running shoes, actual good running shoes. And the difference it made in my run was night and day. Yeah. And from that, eventually I was like, okay, well, I can't just keep doing 10K and just keep extending this further and further. Like I could. And then I started doing different routes and seeing how fast I can get to certain points. And then I'd do like interval. I'd do sprints for so long. And then I would go into a jog and then sprint again. And then I saw that 10K suddenly turned into 20K, right? Because it just got that much easier just from, like you said, you start doing those intervals and then eventually those gaps start filling in and you can get...
You're not ever able to run. All of a sudden you do like 1 minute intervals at a pace. You're not going to be all of a sudden running 20 miles at that pace. That's not the point.
Exactly.
It's like that pace that's over that, but under your regular pace, all of a sudden feels comfortable compared to that, and your body will adapt. That's how our bodies adapt, right? It's like, I know we want to talk about morning routines and everything and different things you learn. And, you know, we're in this lifestyle now of like everything's easy, everything's comfortable, and no one's improving because everything's just trying to be easier. But it's, and you saw it today, like the obstacle race crew, we had 25 people out there and it was rainy. I mean, we got lucky in
drops
part of Winnipeg, but it was raining other places, and people are just looking for that one little excuse to kind of talk themselves out of something. Everyone knows what they want or that they should be doing or whatever else, but it's so easy now.
It's a little bit that confidence, right? Yeah. And I've seen that especially through coaching youth programming and even in the inner city youth is where you see it pronounced is just that confidence. Some people don't have that confidence to ever step in the building. So that's the first step. And then there's the step maybe onto the field. I coached football programming. So sometimes they would sit on the side and watch other kids. Or sometimes they would just sit in the change room the whole time because they don't have that confidence. Then it was maybe sit on the sidelines, see other kids do it. And then, the other kids are having fun while they do that. And so all of a sudden there's that stimuli that says, maybe I should try this. And so maybe it takes them a couple times, but then by the third time they come out and they run a couple times, but then they get discouraged. So they sit back down. Yeah. And then they go, well, let's try this again. And I remember one incident specifically where we were practicing catching and kids would run and sometimes you drop it and you're likely going to drop it the first couple times you do it because you don't know where to put your hands. And so we teach those skills, but you got to try and reinforce the good habits. And then all of a sudden there was a girl that went out and she was one of the ones that was too afraid to come out initially, but then was there running through and I think first couple times dropped it. And then the third time through went out, caught the football and she went, I can do this. I just caught the ball. This is amazing. And was so elated and excited.
Actually go through it, right? Like I teach kids all the time, and beyond the curriculum I need to teach, it's like teaching life skills first. So let's say I'm doing like something with 7-year-olds. You know, you see it with adults as well, but it's like, how do we change that mentality of not wanting to look bad at something at the start, or being okay with like being bad, or
supportive environment,
right? And so I started saying like, Okay, you guys remember those devil sticks? They're like
devil sticks.
Yeah, there's like sticks, and then you flip them around. Anything. This could be done with yo-yos or ping pong, whatever it is, whatever your skill you're teaching, like throwing football. And I say, like, all of a sudden you put the success towards how many times they are dropping it or messing up. That's what I want to see. So
measurable success.
And this challenges the kids that are better and not just like, oh, I'm already good at this, I can't get better, or whatever. So you give a number of how many times the ball should be dropping. And you say, like, if it's not dropping more than 5 out of 10 times, maybe, like, you shouldn't be proud of how you're challenging yourself. And then all of a sudden when they drop it, they're like, okay, maybe I'm like actually challenging myself. That's a good thing, right? I shouldn't be catching 10 out of 10. Or if I am catching 10 out of 10, how can I change this to make it more difficult, to make myself better, right? So I try and change it and change the like internal dialogue of doing that. And I mean, you see this with adults all the time as well. And I just want to, I don't want kids to grow up with the same mentality. It's not anyone's fault. It's just what people go to. They'll throw out an excuse or a little thing just in case they do bad. Mm-hmm. So you go to a run, you go to a marathon. What do people talk about at the start? I just didn't really get a good sleep last night, or
they're setting themselves up.
Just in case they don't do as well as.
But then they're also setting up the mentality that they're not going to do as well.
Then when you get uncomfortable in like that 4th or 5th mile, you have that thing to be like, you know what? It's just not a great day for me. I'll just finish, right?
That belief is such a strong.
But those people that have that like consistent, like improvement idea, or being okay with if it doesn't go well, like I'm gonna learn from it, and then the next time I can do it. You know, what podcast number is this?
10.
So
you're the double digit.
I mean, you guys, they say after 11 podcasts, that's what usually people get up to. 11. That's like the average.
We're not gonna quit
podcast. I'm not
11. We're done.
It's an interesting. One more guest, but they say that like. Now I'm forgetting what
podcast 10, quit at 11, excuses.
Yeah. Oh, I had something.
But just trying to build something and trying to be consistent with it. And you're going to have to go through those growing pains with anything.
Right.
I saw that today. There's obstacles that I'd never tried before because I
did really well.
Thank you. Yeah. And I've invented my own workouts and my own ways of training things. I know grip strength is important, and I played on a play structure one day, just walking through on a Sunday.
Isn't it nice? There's a lot of play structures around. When you turn into an obstacle racer, all of a sudden you're like on your run. Oh, I'm gonna go do some pull-ups or whatever it is.
I do parkour. I jump over just bust benches and then play on the rocks and stuff on the side. Nice. I did that and then went to Good Life and did kind of a Spartan oriented, just like pull-ups and stuff after. But so with anything though, it's just building up. And so when I got there today, I went, this is a playground. This is a obstacle course racing playground. And I went, how do I do this? How should I try and attack this? And so I already go through the battle plan in my head of how I'm going to approach every obstacle. But I knew there were ones that, I've never actually done the rings to a rope swing to then like the whatever, like
traverse
bar. And so I went, well, let's try it. And was able to, I struggled with it the first time. And then by the second or third time through, I went, oh, I'm more comfortable with this. Yeah. And I really struggled on the rope climb. I don't even know if you saw this, but literally at the very end, because that and the spear throw seemed to be the two things, because I've never done them before. Right. And I know how to throw, so I'm pretty close with the spear throw, but it's just getting it to stick and to actually feel confident with it. I'll probably need to do it more. But the rope was the one thing. I've never just climbed a single rope up 20, 30 feet. And the first time, I struggled with it the first time and was trying to figure out the foot placement and was really slow and got some rope burn on my ankle and went, well, this kind of sucked.
But would you like it if, you came in there and everything was just easy? And
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And so, and it was the second time through. So I basically went through every obstacle in a row and then ended up at the rope and I failed at it. And I went, God, what do I do now? How do I attack this?
Right. How do I get better?
I'm going to just do this one more time. And I went, screw the leg. I'm just going to see if I can muscle up and just pull myself up with all my arm strength, and let's see how fast we can get up this thing. And I went, and I started going, and I went, oh, this is much easier. And then got to the top, tagged the top, and then slid down, and I went, that's amazing. I was just elated at that moment because it's all of a sudden, now I know I can do it.
Yeah.
And I'm happy, I'm excited. I have that confidence now going into a race that I can attack an obstacle like
so
that.
Maybe this is a good segue then into how you kind of transition from, say, like soccer and running into Spartan racing. And for those listeners that don't know, what is Spartan racing?
Yeah. So Spartan race would be, or obstacle racing is kind of like a blend of trail and mountain running, depends on the course. And then you add Ninja Warrior style obstacles, so a lot of hanging ones with different like handholds or traverse walls like rock climbing. And then you throw in military style obstacles like walls and carrying 100-pound sandbags uphill and doing barbed wire crawls and everything. So it's kind of a blend like we talked about before where, you know, two different athletes, two different body types can meet at the finish line at the same time and kind of vary in their positioning throughout, but kind of getting through it. And you're going to be exposed in a Spartan race or an obstacle race. And like you said, you find the one that is tough for you, and you know after that race what you're going to be working on before the next one. That's why it's great. It's not defeating. And I think that's what people are starting to realize. They want to train for something and train for full fitness and not just be so close-minded or, you know, get really good at one thing and then it's done. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's hard to really work at all the aspects where if you want to compete at the front, you can't have any weaknesses. You cannot neglect your weaknesses, and you cannot just work out towards your strengths, or else you get in there. And if you're not top level in all of these aspects, then you just fall back. But you have those people that just want to do it for fun, and they're super nervous at the start, and they get through the race, and they're like, you know what? Yeah, I couldn't get up the rope, and you know, I fell off the balance beam. But I was pretty impressed with I forgot I could do monkey bars, and I forgot I could do all this stuff. And yeah, they're not winning and anything, but it was a really good challenge. It's a good event. They had something purposeful to train for, which is huge.
And maybe gives them a new goal, right? Like, now I know what I need to work on to get past this one point, right?
Yeah. And you see gyms going to this all the time now as they're taking more machines out and giving more functional training just areas and certain equipment to be used.
That's why you see turf zones in every gym.
Yeah, it's great. It's great if people know how to use it and are comfortable to use it. So you still need to create the atmosphere, and you still need to share knowledge of how to build a training program. Yeah, it's great if there's a turf there, but no one's going to set up some cones to do some different footwork drills or conditioning drills and everything. They're just going to go lay down and do yoga because that's what they know on a space to do, right? And if you want to be versatile, then you need to explore. But that's what the internet is amazing. If you want to really look into it and you care about it, you'll figure it out. Or start hanging out with people that know more than you in that regard, right? I was never the best runner. I was never the best rock climber, but I go do those things with people that are more focused on that alone. And so I'm kind of this obstacle racer that runs with the track guys. And then I go jump rock climbing every once in a while with these guys that
makes
go
you a little
all the
bit
time.
better in that, right? Because they're specializing in that. So they're always going to be better, but at the same time, that's more for you to focus on to get better at.
Totally.
Right?
In my career, if you hang out with people, with teachers who have been passionate forever and they have more experience, and you're going to learn from them. Yeah. And you can do that with anything, right? When people ask me about Spartan racing, and social media is great for this because they'll see maybe your result and they realize you actually might know what you're talking about, maybe. So they'll reach out, and I love it because I love the person saying, "Hey, I'm doing my first Spartan race. I have no idea what kind of shoes to wear. What do you recommend?" And sure enough, I was there, right? Everyone was there, and you have to realize that if someone has experience or they've been in it, like most people want to share.
Do you recommend trail running shoes, or because I have the ones with the tire bottom, the Under Armour ones?
Yeah.
But I don't have trail running shoes just because I haven't been exposed to it. So
it depends on the course. Yeah. So if you're in a pure mountain course and you had a little bit of rain,
then I would be slipping all over the place.
It'll be a ski hill for you. So
find some trail running shoes. All right.
Yeah, we can talk about options. But the great thing about this as well is it's not, you don't have to buy that $5,000 bike. You don't, you can get through it in flip flops and some, like, you really can, right?
Perfect. And tape up your feet and you're good to go.
Yeah. So there's that aspect too. That's not like a big commitment.
Yeah.
To know if you like it or not.
So what I love about Spartan racing already, and I'm definitely not seasoned. I've done a mud hero race, so I guess maybe I can say I've done an obstacle course race before, but now taking it seriously as a challenge and something that I want to be competitive with, it really seems like it's a holistic challenge in the way that you have to be prepared for everything. I mean, you do have the grip strength and things, like a little bit of the technical style, but to me, I measure that as, okay, you have the cardiovascular and running and like long distances, depending on what you're doing, because you have the sprint or you have the beast or you have the super, and likely there's so many other obstacle course races. But so the cardio side of things, and then there's the strength, so being able to support your body weight, and so going to the gym and still doing your lifts is going to be important, and keeping that base strength. And then I look at flexibility and just being able to. And I really like yoga in the sense that, okay, your flexibility, it's probably going to increase your stride, make your body feel better. You'll be more nimble on climbing and obstacles. And so I just see it as this, it's a way that you can train holistically for all sorts of different things. And then that's going to help you attack this course coming up. And so that seems amazing. And it also seems, so you've said that you come from a soccer background and running around, and you said starting at 130 pounds, and I come from the exact opposite, which is like, how much bigger, stronger, and then better sprinting can I be? Like, how fast can I run at like 205, 215 pounds? Yeah. And it seems like there's this funneling system of like people from absolutely any background. One of my favorite stories was like an 80-year-old lady. It was on the Spartan Up podcast, but an 80-year-old lady that was watching her son do it in his 40s or 50s and said, I want to try that. It looks like so much fun.
Great, yeah.
And she just found the way. She said she does her granny trot, and she does she can't do burpees, so she splits it up and does jumping jacks and does push-ups and just finds the way through. And I think that's so amazing that you can have football players, soccer players, probably gymnasts, and all sorts of different people from all different backgrounds, and yet it can be any challenge that you want too. It can be for fun. It can be to go with a group of people or maybe go on a trip somewhere, or you can take it seriously and go, I want to be one of the top tier people at this, and I want to challenge to be on the podium or win every time.
Yeah.
And so I like that, and the sense of community, just like it seems like it's a positive thing for everyone involved.
Yeah.
And that's how I'd put it.
And I've always found that, like, since this community, people are coming from so many different sports. Like you said, you love the community of it, and you do realize it when you go to a race, and like you're going to realize it in a couple weeks.
And I haven't even met anybody in the community. Well, until today. Literally, I knew a couple guys, Tristan Sampson, and a couple other guys that have run races before. But I was like, I didn't know there was an obstacle course racing community here.
Yeah.
But even on Instagram, I've started following some people and some Spartan, and follow the Spartan races.
Oh yeah,
their official Instagrams. And
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I think there's less like comparison to where you finish or where your style is. Like, you could finish 200th, you could finish first place. Like, those people are still talking about the race after. You all went through the exact same course.
Yeah.
And although you might not necessarily train together, you can. You all need to improve certain things, right? So, and I also just think it's a community of people that want to be challenged. And when you're doing that, it's all personal, right? There's no contact. There's no anything. If we're racing against each other, if you beat me, it's probably because like you were better prepared, right? It's personally, you know, you didn't beat me. You just yourself ran a really good race.
Yeah.
So for me, like finishing the race, even though you're racing someone else, like you don't really run into those things where, like, let's say in a team sport, a competitive sport, you know, this person did this, that's why we lost. It's just like, oh, I wasn't prepared for this, or this person was like way better at certain things. Yeah, and I think people try a race for the first time, you know, like you tried one of the intro ones, and people don't realize how competitive Spartan race and obstacle racing is now. Like I went to World Championships, which is a qualifying event, and they only take the most difficult races around the world, and it's so broad. Like there are really competitive racers from South Africa, from the UK, from Australia, and so all of a sudden you come to World Championships and they take the most difficult obstacles from all of the competitive races, not just Spartan.
Yeah.
Actually, Spartan doesn't even really have a specific one. So you come there and there's these guys from South Africa who know this one obstacle, and you get a guy from Canada that's like, that's pretty intimidating. Like I've never seen that. Like one called Dragon's Back, that's like big walls, spikes out of the ground, and you basically have to jump in between the gaps of the spikes, and you have to catch like a traverse pole and then flip yourself over it and then get the next jump. Like different things like that, which are just, they do it so confidently, and you're like, okay, I gotta figure this out. But again, we talk about being an all-around athlete, and there's guys that come from all over the place. Like just to give people an idea of numbers, like there was about 68 countries represented, and I'd say top 10, there were about 7 different countries represented in the top 10. So it's competitive other places. Obviously the US circuit is like, you know, it's progressed, and there's some athletes that are doing it professionally and everything like that. And yeah.
What's the top ranking? I know a couple of years ago you're 44th overall in the world.
That was well, last year at World Championships, I got 6th place in the men's pro division.
Wow.
So that was like I surprised myself. But you know, like I started doing races and always counting myself down from the top guys. So let's say in any sport, you know, you know who the top guys are, and you're coming up and you have skill. You're still counting yourself below those people. And I used to always just try and stay close to them. And then eventually I started having races where I was like, all right, I'm still feeling good. And you start passing a few people, and you know, you change your mentality and being like, let me just see what I can do personally and not care who's at the race and who's better at certain things. Just go out there and try. So unfortunately, Spartan World Championships is in Lake Tahoe. So that's, you know, we're at 9,000 feet elevation, and training in Manitoba, you definitely feel it. And it's a mountain course. So in that race, I was still, you know, top 15. But then you get to World Championships and you take the altitude out of it, and it's 2 weeks later, and you add some more athletic, kind of dynamic obstacles, and it suited myself as an athlete better. And so
that's interesting that courses even have their own styles, because you're going to be traversing different terrain, and you're going to have maybe, and especially if it's a different organizing committee or things, you're going to have like different skill sets might excel in different courses. And so, and even different altitudes, like there's so many things that you might not even consider or not even be able to control, and even weather and things too. Maybe somebody can win a wet race that wouldn't win a dry one. And so it's cool to just have to deal with the elements and the terrain, and you're taking on whatever's thrown your way.
So we talked about like how I went to New Zealand for a while. The reason I had that opportunity is because I signed a few contracts. Like I had done really well in the Canadian series, and certain brands I was starting to be sponsored by.
What are the brands you're sponsored by?
This season, so Spartan Race was like had the head sponsor of Reebok, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now this year they've actually closed that contract, and now it's just Spartan Race. So they're big enough brand now that they don't need like their
affiliate.
Yeah, whatever else. So I mean, signing a contract with Reebok last year and signing a few other contracts with some big brands or brands that are just really connected with the community, right? So this year, I have a few local brands I partner with, and then also a few kind of online ones or ones that want to kind of be exposed in the community. And all the brands I work with, I love the people behind them, and I actually use them all. I think that was like a not coming from a professional athlete mentality. I didn't want to represent something like that I really didn't believe in, or even though, it probably cut a few opportunities, it's not my style.
You have to be genuine. You have to be real.
So I mean, there was a point where if I was successful at races, I'd come back from a weekend and it would be what I was making teaching for the month, right? So you're kind of at this stage where, I don't have kids yet. I don't have this. I know I don't want to be a professional athlete my whole life. The pressure of that and just different things. It's not something I was like super interested in, but I want to take an opportunity. And a lot of the guys that were beating me, some of them were all doing it professionally. So I wanted to see what it was like. And getting 6th at World Championships was because I took 2 months off of teaching and actually just focused on being an athlete. And anyone can do the work, right? You can put in the work, you can put in the workouts, but you also need to have the time to put into recovery, to fueling yourself, to eliminating stress throughout your day. And when you're working full time and you're running 5 classes a week like myself and all this other stuff, at this point I'm just fitting it in again. Yeah. And I'm not as, you're not as dialed in, and it's okay. Like I also realize that, it's kind of a lone life, right? Like you're saying no to a lot of things that you want to do, but that doesn't promote towards your goal, right? Like if a couple of your buddies want to go out for drinks and you're like, well, I have to get up early and do this workout and I don't want to, you start to see certain lifestyle changes. So I'm finding a good blend right now, and I'm really happy with what I'm doing with it. And like we said, people have this expectation of me now of like, okay, if Mick's at this race in Canada, like I have a chance to win it. Yeah. But I started realizing if no one's going to think less of me or whatever else if I don't win a race, or that's not really it's not defining who I am. And, it's fine. And I still want to be that person that's like, yeah, a couple days before the race, I had a couple of drinks and was out, or I ate that birthday cake or whatever it is. It just, I like that I can be competitive and still push myself, but it doesn't stress me out if I don't get a good sleep one night or I miss a super hard workout. So I'm finding that balance right now. As a transition, it was nice to do for a while. And obviously I did very, very well because I could do it, but a lot of other things took a little bit of a...
Yeah. It's nice to come back to your base of you have teaching and you have these classes that you run and you have your training still, but it's like you can take it to the extreme and say, I want to go win and I want to do this, but that seems unsustainable in the long term unless that's your only goal. Like you're so focused on being number one in the world that you give up everything just to achieve that. And I don't see that for myself either. I like to have a hand in a lot of things, and this podcast and
you're
being
still
balanced.
Doing everything well. It's not like, and we are talking about like you want to do well, and it's a mentality, and you'll make time for the things you want to do. And there's a lot of things I still want to make time for, and it's like giving the busiest person something to do, they'll make time for it, right? They know how to do it. They'll be. And you start to look at your day and you're like, yeah, I could still do better. Like
So someone like myself who's wants to get into, say, obstacle course racing, or anyone really for that matter, but I know I I've had interest in it, and I know after my knee surgery and once I recover, as much as it's an excuse, it's also
well, that's a different.
I feel like it's a little more legitimate excuse.
Yeah.
But like also when I think about it, and I've been thinking about obstacle course racing for a couple of years, so it's not like I couldn't have tried it before.
Right.
So that what happens is the fear floods in, right?
Yeah.
So you start thinking the what if this happens, and then there's the time too. It's like how do I make time for this? How do I make time to train for it? How do I train for it? And then what if I get hurt on the course? What if this happens, right? So what is your advice to someone like that who wants to do it, but then there's all these kind of just things that just flood in their mind?
I think if your mind starts going that way, you should get excited to actually do it, right? It's like starting something for the first time. Or I just actually accepted a new job at a new school. So I'm teaching different age kids. I'm teaching in a brand new building, and you could kind of get content with taking the old way and what you're comfortable with, and or you could try it. You can always realize it's not for you, or you're doing too much, and that'll just make you a stronger person.
For sure.
How I see it, when people look at time and they start saying like, I don't know if I have time for it. It's like you realize what you'll make time for, and if you start to actually look at certain people who are successful and do so much, you realize how much time you're wasting on like different things that aren't
a lot of little things, right?
Fueling you, right? Like it's, we have so many things that organize us and make things quicker, but we also waste a lot of time that's not towards any of our purposes, right? Sure. So I would say just like if someone wanted to get into public speaking, or then you start saying, well, what if, and that's when you need to say like, okay, maybe this is kind of something that will actually like excite me and make me kind of turn into the person. Like you want to expose yourself to things that are going to challenge you to become a better person. Then all of a sudden you go back to like your old lifestyle, or some things settle down. Maybe the race is done. You have a bit of time after the race where you don't have to train so hard. Like, wow, I was like fitting it in so well. Now all of a sudden, like I have more time, whether you all of a sudden have a kid or whatever. Like you're just learning so much about yourself through putting yourself towards other goals, and it's just different venues, whatever you want to get into, and be okay. Like we were talking about before, you need to be okay with being exposed or not being great at something right away.
Sure.
But what could happen if you actually decided to challenge yourself?
I like what you were saying before too about it's not always about doing better than everyone else or trying to do better than everyone else, but trying to maybe do personal best and realizing what you can always do better at, right? Through it. So
like in a race, there's obviously penalties at obstacles if you don't complete them or you fail them. In world championships, it's mandatory completion. So in the pro wave, there's about 50% of people that actually don't finish while completing all the obstacles. You can get to an obstacle, realize you can't do it, get your band cut, and then continue. Like you can finish the race, but you don't finish. If you want a ranking and everything, you have to finish mandatory completion everything. Or in Spartan, if you mess up, you have to do 30 burpees before you continue. So there's that added pressure. And, you could finish the race. And I've had these races where I've missed an obstacle, and I slipped off it, whatever. I was rushing through and done burpees, not finished first. Knew that if I didn't mess up, like I would have finished first, and kind of just like having that understanding, like still being proud of your effort.
Yeah.
So I think everyone wants recognition now with social media, with whatever. Like I was in a pretty negative headspace with teaching for a while, because it's all like you don't get recognition for what you do, right? You do if you look out for it. But I wasn't posting on social media like, hey, look, I inspired these kids to like try this, or this little boy for 3 weeks has been working on this. He can finally do it, or different things like that. And you scroll through your social media and it's like, look what I'm doing. Look at this exciting thing. Look at this. And man, all these people are getting cool opportunities, or they're doing such interesting things, and people are liking it. People are, and for a while I was like, I don't know if teaching's for me. Like I want to inspire people and people to realize it maybe. And it is a selfish thing to say, but you see other people putting in less effort, less time towards like what they're doing and getting that online success.
Yeah.
Right. And I had to kind of step back and realize like the other day I went into my old school where I was teaching, and the kids that were like, hey, Mr. G, like, you go away for 6 months, because I was in New Zealand, and you realize how much of an impact you really had on those people, or the people I'm teaching in my classes, like my fitness classes and or OCR and everything. And they come back from a race and they're like, man, Mick, like do you realize like I couldn't climb a rope before this, or you taught me that technique, or you told me about the shoes and whatever, and it was amazing, right? So, or you just got me to sign up for a race. Like maybe it's that, and you don't see that background stuff, but really you get way more out of that personally. Maybe 200 people don't see that, but you get that like one-on-one interaction that's still so much stronger than like 500 likes. And
to know that you reached someone and you made a huge difference in their life.
I had to sit back and kind of reflect on that, because it was, you're teaching and like I said before, you're just like, you're thinking you want something that you're not really realizing like it's not fulfilling you or whatever else.
What I see from that is it's nice to have, and even with this, it's like it's nice to have a platform to share your ideas and yourself openly with people.
Yeah.
And they can take from that what they will, right? Mm-hmm. Like and that's what social media can be good for. But I have the same views of like, it sucks to have that, like, if that's how you value yourself, you're not necessarily having that genuine interaction with somebody, like you said, where it's oh, I climbed that rope. Like, those are the moments that make life worth living, where it's that genuine, that you've made a difference in somebody's life, that maybe they wouldn't have attained that ever if you hadn't been there, if you hadn't been part of their life. And so those are just the awe-inspiring moments. And there have been so many little ones that I've really enjoyed. One of the things that I appreciated from you, what I got instantly, is just you're super open and wanting to help.
Yeah, it's great. I love it when people like reach out, like, because you don't always realize who's paying attention, right? Or someone recommends you need to meet my friend that does this or that or whatever else.
I heard through the grapevine. I heard through the grapevine. I have to share this story because I think it's so funny. But I literally heard through the grapevine that one of my childhood friends, Shay, was training with you. Shay Nordheim?
Yeah.
So I heard that he was training with an obstacle course racer, and I went, oh, cool. Like, I didn't know there was a community. And it was my mom that told me. So when I reached out to you, I was like, so I found out about you from my mom. and I was just
Does your mom know me?
No, but she had heard through, because it's so family friends, right?
Yeah.
But it's just down the grapevine because she knows that I'm signed up for the Spartan race. And then she's like, you should reach out to him because, one of the top racers around, and like,
that's
definitely
what's the
in
best
Winnipeg.
Thing is you can actually reach out to people easily.
Yeah,
and that was the other thing is people were looking at my trip, let's say from New Zealand or whatever else, and they're like, how did you get that job? Or how did you know this was such a great place to live or for what you wanted to do? And I like went on social media, looked at certain gyms in the area, reached out, told them who I was, and reached out to a few people that were posting great pictures of mountain running or whatever, and said, hey, I'm going to be moving there in like two months. Like, do you mind like sharing your favorite couple? And I mean, people are excited. They're like, yeah, tell me when you're here. I'll probably go with you. It's same idea, right?
It's so cool, the opportunities that develop when you open yourself up to the world and just say like, and reach out to people at gyms or just talk to somebody that you meet at the gym. Or
as long as you keep, as long as your true intentions are like, and your energy's there, and
being open-minded too, I think is a big part of it.
I think another thing is like, teaching had its little frustration for a while, and same with training. Like, you put in 3 weeks and nothing's really happening. You're not seeing anything, or I'm seeing all these guys get all these sponsorships and everything, and I'm beating them in races, but I'm not doing a great job on social media. So there's obviously that connection, and that's something that keeps me honest with my social media, is like just keeping up with the community. But then all of a sudden, I always tell myself is like, you're so close. It's like that picture of two miners like going into tunnels. They're mining tunnels, and there's this huge diamond in both the miners' tunnels, and they get in, and one of them is like 2 inches from cracking to find that diamond, and then he gives up, and the other guy just is slower, but he keeps going, and then eventually he finds it. And I think like things compound. Like nothing will happen for 3 weeks, but if you're keeping true to like motivation, only you don't wake up every day and are like, I'm gonna like crush this workout, I'm gonna be so like organized. And
it'd be nice if that's the way it worked.
Yeah. And that's what people are seeing online as well. They see everyone like all this successful stuff and all this stuff.
But that's the thing. They don't see all the bad side of it either, the downside of it.
Yeah. So you need to just, I think, and then all of a sudden 1 week and 5 opportunities will come up.
Yeah.
And different things, even just to like come do this podcast and be like, hey, come out to the OCR thing, and different things like that, and just moving around. And it's really cool. Like I started to really appreciate when if you keep the momentum going, even if it's just slow, like keep that dial moving, then eventually like big things start happening. You never know when 2 or 3 of them are going to compound into something great that you obviously deserve, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was one of the things I wanted to mention too, is in those moments that it's hard to get up for a workout, or you don't have that momentum, do you usually feel that those are the days that you see the biggest growth, or that you crush a PR or do something?
So those are the days I like to tell people, because they're like, oh, well, you're naturally such a good runner, or you know, genetics, whatever else. And I'm like, literally it's, 2 workouts at 100%, beast mode, and then taking 2 weeks off because you're like, have excuses, or consistently working out at like 70, 80%, or training, or slowly changing small routines instead of just being like, wake up one day and be like, now I'm going to be vegan, or now I'm going to, whatever it is. I mean, hey,
hey, we laugh.
Vegans are fine.
To the vegans, yeah.
we laugh, but that's a lot of people's mentality.
Yeah,
it's like, I need to do this 100% right now.
Instead of making those small, full changes.
And so it becomes unsustainable.
My rule is 10 minutes. 10 minutes. So I could be like half falling asleep in my car on the way in between work. When you work with kids all day, or you teach a couple classes after, like sometimes you're just emotionally drained. And you're driving in your car and it's a hot day and you're like, maybe I could just go home. And you're not feeling it, right? But I would just say 10 minutes. After 10 minutes of sweating, then I can decide if I want to go home or not. And I always I've never walked away from a workout after, but sometimes also like you start to realize training at a higher level. I'm not just going to the gym and lifting some weights and going home. Like there's, that's just my warm up, 10 minutes, right? Like it's not like I go in and I just go on the elliptical or whatever and just move 10 minutes. Then usually it changes my mentality of like, okay, this is what I want to do. And sure enough, like some of those times are the times I have the best workouts, or it's like, I am a little tired, but what can I do today to like set myself up for more success tomorrow when I'm not, you can be overtrained. You could be tired from, I did 25K race yesterday. So am I going to be a little tired?
Won by 35 minutes.
Eastgate?
Yeah.
Eastgate Ultra. I missed one of the checkpoints by about 500 meters. So when I finished it, officially I didn't finish the whole segment. And it was cool because this race is in this beautiful part of Manitoba. And so they wanted to make you loop out away from the main trail to see a few like lookout points. But to prevent people from just skipping the lookout points, because those were added up into the 25K, you had to punch, like they had hole punches, different shapes. So when you finished, your race card had a few different hole punches on them, and I was missing one of the hole punches. But it was just, there wasn't a volunteer there at the time when I ran by. And so I had no idea I was like off until I finished the race. And I looked at my watch and I was a little short. And he asked for my,
card. Whatever.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're going to get that in races as well. Probably not when there's crowds, but when I'm in the lead in races, you're constantly second guessing, like,
where you're
is this the right way? As much as, a guy will go through and put arrows and ribbons and everything, people go off course all the time. And you just don't know, because when you're racing, you need to make those split decisions. It's easier to walk up to a fork and address a sign or realize there's a ribbon off in the distance over there.
You don't have that time to
see a trail and just start running, or the guy in front of you literally makes the wrong decision and you're just racing him.
Yeah.
So I've had some really good racers finish a race and be like, well, I went off course, or someone won, but they were actually in 10th, but the top 9 guys were all in a group and they all went the wrong way. Or
oh wow.
It just happens. You have to be okay with it. And I mean, sure, I didn't like bring home a trophy, but like, was that race amazing? And did I get 99% of the course done? And did I feel good? Yeah. So that's what matters. It's not really about that. Yeah.
Those levels of exhaustion definitely lead to that. Like, I even had that running the first half marathon. There was just one point where there's like, do I go this way or this way? And took 3 steps and went, no, it's not this way, and got back on track. Thankfully, I wasn't fighting for the lead or anything. And I got back to following other people, but it's crazy in those
realize,
moments.
Like, when you try an obstacle race too, and coming from running and whatever else, so much can go wrong. You can slip off an obstacle, have to start burpees. You can go a little off course and realize you have and run back. You can, get hypothermia. You can like, there's so many variables, and then you go back to a road race and you're like, it's raining a little bit. Like, no big deal.
Is this? Yeah.
Like, you go, and that's another thing. Like, there's no excuses anymore to why I can't do something, right? And this has definitely taught me and I think once you have that mentality, just everything makes sense. Just getting here after doing like a private session and then that group session and coming over here, like, it's good to fit it in, but you add rain to it, and you see all those obstacle course racers, they'll show up, like, they don't care about a little rain. But you see other businesses and everything, like, they'll tell you right away if there's a little bit of a snowstorm outside or a little bit of rain,
it's an excuse to stay home.
Yeah, there's always that background thing. And I mean, you can always find, I see my mind going there every once in a while, you will always find an excuse to talk yourself out of something. Even if you want to do it and everything, it's just what you're comfortable with. Cold showers in the morning, that sets you up for momentum.
Josh did that too. I can't do it. I
don't do full cold showers. I do so there's actually like research, like, you don't need to take like a 10-minute freezing cold shower.
Right.
So do everything, last 2-3 minutes is like crank it off, turn it to cold, and just take deep breaths through it. And that's kind of like, you talk about people that make their bed in the morning or take cold shower or something. It's like, you could not do it and it would be fine. But are you better than that, like 99% of people, right? And it's just like, if you do that, something else runs into your day. It's like, can I do this better? Or can I do the best job? And you start your day with a little momentum like that, and that quick decision, it adds up so quick throughout your day. So it's like, for me, if I want to get something done that I don't want to do, I do a different task first and start the momentum. Whether it's like legitimately putting a load of laundry in or I don't know, making a smoothie first or something that's just like quick that I also want to do, or send one email or something. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, now you're answering 20 emails that you needed to do.
So it's that momentum, but then it seems like you have a task list. So does that stem from professional development literature, or is that something you've always done?
I've always been a book person beyond like stories and stuff. And I understand the value of like shutting your mind off towards any kind of thing and just like enjoying a good storybook or whatever. But for me now, like the reading I do is all self-development. You know, like I have a lot of interest in flow state. Obviously, it has a lot of relevance to racing, but it has a lot of relevance to like times when you just are getting tons of work done.
What is a flow state?
So it's kind of like that state of being where you are like 100% confident in all of your actions. So you talk about like a big wave surfer, like there's tons of risk involved, but if they think twice about, should I like carve here or do this, you know, you eliminate the fear. Whether it's public speaking, you can be in flow state public speaking, you can be in flow state painting, you can be in flow state racing, where like you don't really feel that much pain or discomfort, not pain, but so it's really interesting because you realize, when you start to realize what flow state is, you start to realize when you've been in flow state and how to get there more often. So Rise of the Superman is like a classic book for that. I can give you guys a whole list.
Oh, please.
Please do.
I mean, I love
Add to my
Malcolm
list
Gladwell,
of 70
like,
books now.
Tipping Point.
Nice.
Obviously, I've read The Talent Code, which is really interesting. It's kind of about like, do people have talent, or were they just exposed to like certain things in time? I'm reading Own the Day right now, just by Aubrey Marcus, and that's really
It's
about
On It, right?
Yeah, owner, CEO of On It. But he has such a diverse and educated, like he's very knowledgeable in so many different things. He's not, you know, you get those fitness professionals that are just, that's what their life is, and they know so much about it and they can teach you so much. But I mean, he delves into so many different things. So I think his ideas of that book is, you know, if you own the day, you're going to own your life. So like set yourself up well, so that set yourself up well in the areas that like you can control. And then the rest of the day, you're going to be a better person, and like things are going to happen in the right way because of those small things that you set up. So really interesting. There's a lot of research behind why he's telling you to do certain things, and makes you second guess certain routines you have and how you can make quick switches. So that's originally why I started trying cold showers. Then now I realize why you do certain things. So
some of that's putting yourself in the discomfort zone to then, if you're constantly putting yourself in those places where you have to go outside your current comfort zone, that's what's going to lead to growth. That's been a large part of my own life in this past year, is just, what are the things, what do I value, what do I want to accomplish, what do I want to do? And like I said, going through a quarter life crisis, and then it's going, okay, what do I want out of life? And what haven't I done or haven't I tried that I really want to? And I always talk that part of it, I have a vision board, but entertaining, the word just always came back. And I had hosted some things when I worked with the football club, and I'd been in front of people and coached, and I just went, there's something here that I haven't really tried or really had the time to do. And I went, let's find a plan. How do I get myself in front of people, and how do I entertain? And I tried comedy, fell flat on my face, and went and cheered because I got through my material. And it was hard because I just didn't get to the point where I could connect with the audience. It was more so to get my jokes out. And so I wish I maybe had more time to devote to it, but it evolved into then playing music at a coffee shop in front of people, and did that multiple times, and then eventually evolved to, I bought my own Peruvian hand drum called a cajon, and was able to play in front of people. And so I felt like a musician. And so that was cool. And then all of a sudden this developed with a podcast, and this seems to be the most natural thing that we've done. And it just seems to get support from so many people. And there's been random people that have been involved in my life and maybe not seen them for years, and they go, this is exactly what you should be doing. And it's really cool to just have that experience with something that maybe this doesn't happen if I don't subject myself to those initial fall on your face or maybe in the discomfort zone. And so you see the payoff in the long term, and it's sometimes on that reflection. Like, you got to set those goals, you got to work towards them, you got to find the way that works. But sometimes in that reflection, you go, look at how much I've grown, look at how far I've come.
You just need to tell yourself, like, things are going to work out if you have the right, like,
if you're willing to put in the work.
Yeah. I mean, and it doesn't matter, like, if you don't 100% have a direction. Like, people think that
sometimes you just got to try or just get started.
You meet the right people, you get an opportunity to hear from something else, or, you know, maybe the next time you're at a coffee shop and you see a guy struggling doing live music, like, you're going to go up in between his sets and say something to him that's going to totally change something. And then he buys you a drink after and you're talking and he's like, oh yeah, like, my friend has a really successful podcast. I should link you up with him. Or, you know, it's not necessarily to try and network, but you just never know who's going to, like, come into your day and what opportunities are going to come out of trying. But you also learn process of learning something, exposing yourself to it, being in front, and, like, that's just a mindset. It doesn't matter like what the skill is you're working on, whether it's getting into a podcast. It is nice that you're doing it with someone.
It keeps you accountable.
Yeah, and it totally is. That's one thing, is like, a lot of people will do something, but
it's weird how it ended up working out for us, because he actually, Riley used to work for Good Life for a bit, and that's how we played dodgeball prior to that, but that's how we started talking, and we would sit in the back office for like 2 hours at a time and just talk on random tangents from, like, Game of Thrones to how the universe works and are there aliens.
Right.
That was literally one conversation too that led to all of
for like
these.
2 hours. Yeah.
but not as you're playing dodgeball.
Not as we're playing dodgeball. But it's funny when you actually feel those unspoken connections with people. Sometimes you just gravitate to, you just see their mentality, you see the way they view the world. And I always found that with Jayse. Even playing dodgeball, I went, like, this is a mind that I just connect with.
Yeah.
But then there's even sometimes you don't necessarily hit that point initially. But then maybe that opportunity arises, like, it was a slow day and you came back there to sit down, and then it just goes on this tangent. And we had somebody literally in the room and say, well, I enjoyed being a fly on the wall for that conversation.
Yeah, they just listened the entire time, didn't say anything.
That's fine too. You know, some people are just reflective listeners too. You don't necessarily have to have, like, this deep conversation with someone. Sometimes, you know, all they want to do is prompt those questions, and that's okay too. I started, one of my, like, dreams or visions was to run this fitness class, and I knew there were boot camps for, like, all women. I knew there were boot camps for, you know, HIIT class. I knew there were boot camps for everything. And I mean, from obstacle racing, I started training, like, full fitness and just being, like, so versatile in everything, right? And you start to realize people want that now. Like, not everybody, but there is, like, a specific group of people now that are like, I kind of just do the same thing in the gym. I know what I'm doing. I'm not intimidated by a gym. I can walk in, but I kind of do the same routine. I never really push myself that much. And I'm interested in, like, going and doing certain things. Like, I'd like to be able to jump into a dodgeball game, or jump into a flag rugby game, or go rock climbing and stuff. And so, like, we created Weapon Factory and started inviting just a few people I knew were, like, the right mentality, but, like, no egos, no, like, I'm the fittest person in the world because I'm so versatile. You know, it's just like, challenge me and let's build off each other's momentum, and, like, really still get some good strength and condition training, so your body's not just adapting to, like, a body weight HIIT workout every week. And so I started training a few guys, like Shay came, and a few people that I knew would appreciate it, and slowly, just word of mouth, and finally found the right gym to run it out of, and it's just kind of building momentum and naturally growing. So it's been a nice, like, little passion project of mine, and I definitely don't necessarily have time for it and to do it 100% well in terms of, like, market it well and everything, but I have to believe that, like, if you if you have the right intentions behind it, it'll continue to be successful. So that's a really exciting thing I'm doing right now, and I can share so much knowledge through it, and people are seeing a value in it. It might not be for everyone, although we have so many different fitness levels.
Yeah.
Everyone's got the same mentality of like they want a challenge and they want to be exposed to, oh man, I couldn't do those rope pull-ups, or that core work was like so intense. And then I also wanted to give people tools. So it's kind of like the idea of like teaching a man to fish, or like showing them, like buying them fish, right? Yeah. So give you the tools that you can go back to your gym and everything, and like create your own routine and do that. Because I can't teach class every day. It just doesn't. Yeah.
With a full-time job and everything on the side. I like that adaptable style, just being able to do a lot of different things and challenge yourself that way. One of the things that strikes me from you though is the fact that you've reached such an optimal level. Like you've challenged yourself and you've gotten sixth in a race, but you seem so humble in the sense that, and then the people that you've surrounded yourself with, you value that in their character as well.
Yeah.
And that seems surprising just to somebody who's reached. We talked about it a little bit, I think, at the beginning, where it's just that cockiness, confidence, but then there's also the humble side and the showboat side. And it seems like you have very much the humble side where you keep quiet, work, and like to help people, and completely open to answering anybody's questions or helping them on their path and their journey, and helping challenge them too, and seeing how they can progress on their paths.
Well, I think we all see like that you enjoy seeing other people progress through what you can help them with. But I think like in general, I've always kind of just been an athlete that's been okay. And although I've played on some higher level teams, I was never the superstar. And I was on those teams just because of my work ethic. I think you have that like mutual respect, right? And if people see, you don't have to say, hey, look at me, look at what I did, people love that, to feel like people are saying, hey, congratulations, or this and that. But I just started realizing, and I think naturally, I didn't have this point where I was like the other way, but I started realizing I don't need that. And the best value is when people don't see everything, but respect your. Like I looked at the people in my life that I respect in certain areas, and it's because of their actions and just what they're doing. It's not about that they're showing anyone what they're doing. And you just see, so you start to kind of be like, well, that is who I am. And I just, it all is personal thing. And if no one does notice or whatever else, that's okay, because if you know what you put in and the process, eventually the right people will respect it, and that's who you're going to kind of gravitate towards, right? So you're gonna spend time with the people that are also intrinsically motivated, and
people gravitate towards similar style people is definitely one of those things,
and people have it in them. That's the thing is. Maybe they're like, okay, I want to get into Spartan race, and but I'm not that, I didn't do this, or I'm not that good at this yet, or whatever else. And it's kind of like, well, neither was I, or neither, it's just whatever you want to put your mind to. And you need to realize that it all takes time. Like we didn't just show up and
That story resonates with me so much, because I feel the exact same way about how sport has been in my life. And I'm sure most people have the same experience with it. Like there are naturally talented people, but no matter what, it's going to take some kind of effort to work towards it. But I always felt undersized, too slow, all these things working against me playing football, and always felt a step behind everybody. And Malcolm Gladwell's book, actually, Outliers, shows that professional sports, a lot of NHL players, like a crazy amount, like 75 or 80%, I don't know if it's changed now, were born in the months of January to March, because, well, when you hit puberty, they've hit their growth spurt. I'm a late September kid. So I always, And I was always going to be 5 foot. Well, so my excuse, but I was always going to be 5'9".
Yeah.
So when some kids are already 6 feet tall, and I was never the greatest hockey player either, so that might have been against me too. But it evolved, and then football became that challenge for me that pushed me to want to be better.
Right.
And I switched. I was at a high school. I switched high schools so that I could pursue football because I was that passionate about it. And then grade 10, I played a little bit of the 9-man JV football and split some time on the varsity team. The next year I came in, I played a little bit of fullback because we had the leading rusher and really was unhappy. I was on all special teams, so I saw the field, but I wasn't happy with where I was. Right. And then I worked with a trainer the whole off season and really took it seriously. And actually my coach at our banquet at the end of our so we won the championship in grade 12, but at the end of the banquet I went in and talked to him going before that grade 12 season and just to talk, and he literally thought I was going to switch schools and go play somewhere else. It was parent teacher day, and I went in there with my parents, but went in there and asked, what do I need to do to be better, and how do I have to get there? What are the skills I have to work on? And he talked about agility, different things. But then that whole off season, every day going, 5 days a week, driving to Ness and going to work with trainers. And then all of a sudden, grade 12 comes around and I'm in the best shape of my life. Right. People not seeing me through the summer and going, oh my God, you're in tip-top physical shape. We still had the leading rusher and he still played tailback, but I ended up playing offense, defense, and most special teams that year. Huge. And it led to us winning a championship. And I'm not taking personal credit for that. We had a great team, but it's like it takes that kind of like unselfishness and drive and determination to want to better yourself, to better the people around you as well.
There's something to be said about being the middleman, and whether it has something to do with height or, like you're saying, you weren't always particularly the best in the sports that you were playing or what you were doing. However, you still performed decently well. Mm-hmm. There's something to be said about the middleman, and there's actually, I think it's the special forces in the U.S. That in order to qualify for the special forces, you can't be the best and you can't be the worst. So what they do is you train to be a ranger, you train in the Navy, you train like special forces, you're good at everything, right? And so you go on the most elite missions possible. But the people they take when they do the tests with them are not the people that are best. There's what they're called, I think they're called gray men.
Yeah, I've heard a little bit.
And so there's like a psychological aspect to why they choose those people, is because the people at the top have too big of an ego. Yeah, they know they're good and they know they're the best,
and they maybe have never had to actually work that hard to be good at.
Yeah, and whereas the people in the bottom are usually more of the quitters, right? Mm-hmm. And so the people in the middle know what it's like to be closer to the bottom, but they also understand what it takes in order for them to be at the top. Yeah. So they're the people willing to put in the work. Yeah. And that's always the thing too. And we talked about this in terms of certificate and in terms of awards. And I think the best award someone can get is most improved, and not necessarily top performer, because most improved is the person who realized how much work they have to do in order to get to where they want to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and this is a little opinion, but I think if you're going to give a most improved, like growing up, I think it should be a personal conversation. So you let the person know you notice their effort and you notice how much they improved, but don't give them a trophy for it.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah.
Everyone expects a trophy now. Everyone expects even Spartan race, they'll give a medal out to everyone.
Oh, do they now? I don't personally agree with that.
Finisher shirt. And it would be mayhem. And these are adults. Mm-hmm. It would be mayhem if you finish a race and there are other races who have tried to start up and be like, we won't have medals after. And people are like, where's my medal? Like where can I?
Like that's the reason why you're doing it. Right.
Right. Yeah. So I am not disagreeing with you as well. It's just a thought that came to my mind in terms of like changing mentality. It's like tell people you're noticing their efforts and their dedication and how much they're improving because of their process-based like journey, and not that, oh, I noticed you're stronger after the summer for football. Like, be like, I realize how much work that took, and all of a sudden that person's like, yeah, I can actually put work towards anything, and I will improve. And if I talk to a coach or talk to someone that knows more than me, that's the next step. And that's, so it's interesting. It's a really neat.
I agree with that too. And I don't necessarily agree with, especially, there was a whole phase, I'm not sure if schools still do it, where they give like the ribbons or the awards out to everyone who participated.
Yeah, it's a discussion every year, right? Yeah. I think it's like, it always changes, different divisions, different, but
I think competition is healthy.
Yeah. Yes.
So
realizing that someone's better than you guys remember the original beep test?
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. Everyone remembers the beep test. Of course. And there's always that like mental, like, I don't know, it gets people kind of excited. Like everyone remembers it. And you're not going to remember something from middle years, early years school unless it had like an emotion to it or like a personal experience to it. And so I'll get all the kids to run it, and then I'll get them to line up based on how many times a week they're active. So, you have that soccer player that runs 5 times a week. You have that kid that speed skate and plays ultimate frisbee, or you have that kid that goes bikes all the time, or you have that student that plays video games. And it's nothing based on their choices. It's just like, hey, I'm just as impressed with you getting a 3 because of like you probably worked just as hard as that person that got 15, but you didn't put in the time to be good at something like this. But I'm not taking away from your effort at this one thing. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like, okay, put your hand up if you're this and what you're great. And sure enough, it's pretty even base of like going down the line of who's more active and whatever else. And same thing, you see someone do well in business, you see someone do well in like, well, how many of you guys at the top work on a Saturday? How many of you, spend some time on like personal growth and whatever else? And sure enough, it's going to kind of filter down.
Yeah, there's that tapering effect.
People don't all notice that, but I think the right people kind of realize, what can happen. Yeah. So it's getting people to realize it or put them through situations that make them reflect on it.
Yeah. Do they, so in like phys ed class, do they still do, so no, back in the day that you'd have to do the 1,600 meter run and
fitness testing,
the fitness test and push-ups, the sit-ups.
Part of it is just teaching students how to mark down, like record their fitness. So I made my own fitness tests. I still had the beep test in.
Nice.
But yeah, to make the kids do sit and reach. Remember that flexibility test?
Yeah, and I was terrible at that.
Yeah. And
then some kids are going to be bad at it.
Sit and reach is way less intimidating to go over there and check your little score in the corner than like the beep test and to get out at 2. Everyone sees you do that.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect. So we set up the fitness tests so they're not so exposed, and you can be comfortable to be like, all right, I got this. Like, I'm bad at it, but can I improve at it?
I always dreaded the push-up test because I couldn't do a single push-up for the entirety growing
it's
up.
Hard to. It's so funny to.
And then you'd have that one kid who could just go forever.
Yeah. Well, and there's tons of people that are like, oh, I can do 30 pull-ups.
Yeah.
You're like, well, what kind of pull-ups are you doing? Right?
It's halfway doing that.
Yeah.
3-inch movements.
So there needs to be some standardization, but it's getting students to realize that if they are poor at something, there's a reason, and there's ways to improve at it.
Well, when I look back on my whole fitness journey over the last 8 years or so, push-ups were a big part of it because I knew growing up, because of that fitness test, I wasn't able to do a single push-up. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I wanted to do when I started going to the gym was be able to do a push-up and do a lot of them.
See how much that affected you? But if someone kind of had that mentality at the start to be like, hey, you can't do one, but like, here's how you get there. At least going into it, your goal would have been to do a push-up, but you probably would have had like a more base like you would have had more motivation and known how to address it, right? And so it's that, and then getting people to set real goals and not just like aesthetic goals for the gym. And I mean, people are like, oh, it's sweet, you've got like a six-pack or whatever, or you have a great body type, and it's like all performance based. Like it's not like I'm working out something just to make it look good, right? And that motivation only lasts so long, unless
there's those different mentalities. If it's completely aesthetic, it doesn't seem like it's sustainable, because it's like, oh, I want to get a six-pack, and then what do? Are you going to just sustain it? Do you want that for the rest of your life?
You can have that though. There? It's just that you have to have something more with it as well.
And I find just if you're focusing completely on aesthetics, those are the people that can easily fall into bad lifestyle choices. Right. I guess optimal athletes have the same thing with steroids, and it's steroids with both. But so you have optimal athletes that want to get an edge on the competition, and then you have the aesthetic-based people that want a certain look or get obsessed over the mirror and how they can attain whatever their perfect image is of their body type or whatever. But yeah, it's crazy to think of those effects that people have.
Well, it's like, so I look at my fitness after World Championships, and I was like, wow, I was in really good shape. And then I go back to some workouts now, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not quite there yet. Like I realize how good of shape I was in, but I also was dedicating way more time overall. And it's like aesthetically, you work towards like a competition or something, like a bodybuilding competition. Yep. You look great that day, but then you're always trying to, how you did look that one time, so you wish you looked like that all the time. It's not realistic, right? So I need to tell myself that like fitness goals, like as long as I'm working towards something, and there's so much more towards making time for fitness and health, that like there's always going to be a purpose, and there always can be something you can be happy about. Maybe I won't be that great of a runner my whole life or whatever else, but I hope I'm working towards something.
One of my favorite things that happened this past week was I ate pizza. So I celebrated finding my own place.
Nice.
So found my own apartment. I've been looking for months, and it's been
freezer pizza.
So I say I eat paleo and pizza because life isn't worth living without pizza. So
I crushed a huge pizza yesterday.
Nice.
Yeah.
Because I like the philosophy of eating naturally and things that you find in nature, and lots of proteins and meats and things. But then we got to have some pizza. Like at the end of the day, there's that one day that you don't want to cook, so you have that pizza in the freezer. And Delicio, I see you, and I want you to sponsor me. I want to be the first pizza-sponsored athlete. But
you could do better than Delicio. Come on. Right?
No, that's the one that's always in my freezer, and they're a Canadian company.
Are they?
Are they?
But
shout out Delicio.
What's up, Delicio? No, but it's in my freezer every week. Like, pick one up at the grocery store because I know there's that one day that I'm not going to want to cook. Mm-hmm. And so I had that in celebration of finding my own place, and a couple of scotch on the rocks with a friend, and then woke up the next morning to do my Spartan-oriented workout that I've created for the gym, and ended up beating absolutely every single PR that I had.
Need fuel.
Nice.
You totally need fuel. I'm telling you, after about an hour in a Spartan, like in some of the longer courses, like the Beast, and you're getting into like 2.5, 3 hours for the top times. I'll tell you right now, I'm running against people, and if they are on such a strict diet, or like
they just don't have that
all of a
fuel
sudden,
in the
like
tank.
Guess who falls apart after about an hour and 15 minutes? Like you don't see those guys on ketogenic diets like just flying by me. It's there are some benefits to it in like different sports and everything, but
carb up
you
the
need
day
some
before.
You need some fuel. Yeah, you really do. And carbohydrates also allow you to, like, they are a good source of energy. And if your workouts are
it's a good source of energy, good source of fast energy too. Right?
If your workouts are lethargic because of your diet, you're also not getting those performance like challenging workouts because you can't push yourself. It's like those. Wow, this is another topic, but those guys that wear those altitude masks, they look cool. It's like, I get, and you're working out at like half of the oxygen, but you can't push yourself in a workout either. So you're taking like the easier ways out of certain things. And I don't know. I also like to enjoy, if I want to eat that, like I probably will eat it. And if I want some good fuel and in a race, if I have some simple carbohydrates, my body knows that that's quick energy and that's that. And
well, yeah, my epiphany with the whole thing is I'm eating a pizza and probably having a glass of scotch the day before the race, because I think the scotch is nice to just calm down, because it'll be my first race. I think the nerves and the stress of the weekend. And then just the pizza, because the carbs for the morning after, and have like a regular small breakfast, whatever, healthy breakfast, but have that fuel source that I can pull from. I think that's the magical recipe.
It's not going to make or break something. You're not going to, some people get like, and I'm, guilty of this sometimes as well. Like you get so worried about certain things. It's like, I need to take my omega-3 this morning. I forgot it.
Yeah,
and like,
their days
my
just
race
off.
is done. Yeah. And you're like, okay, like let's look at it like in the long term and what's really going to be. Some people spend way too much time looking at like the details and not actually putting in the real like bread and butter of the work, the real work that goes into it. And they're so worried about like what time of the day they should be drinking water, instead of like just have your water bottle with you and drink. And if you pee an extra time during the day, like it's okay. But that's an example, but it's like some people are so focused on those things, and then if one of those things doesn't line up, then again you're not in the right headspace for whatever. So one of the best racers I know in the States, and good friend of mine, we've had some good races. He enjoys like a good, 2 fingers of scotch before a race, and that's his thing. And he wakes up and has these like weird like zoo Fruit Loop things every time. That's the thing. And he's like, hey, simple carbs, and I don't know. I've been doing it forever. So.
It's like Courtney Dauwalter or somebody, but it has Pop-Tarts before every race. I like that one too. That's a good tradition. But I think I found my tradition throughout this too.
If I can earn it, a pizza feels way better, or like
you don't feel ribs or you don't something feel like bad about having it. Then
you earn it, and like then you don't feel guilty afterwards or whatever else. And I mean, there are certain foods that I don't really eat anymore because of like how they make me feel.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of came with the lifestyle, but yeah, like I will crush like 2 racks of ribs, and like
I think it might be a little bit different. I just view it a little bit differently because I'm trying to change my body shape to become more of a runner. So I feel I have to be strict and regimented on just getting nutrients from the right things.
Yep.
So carbs I get in like sweet potatoes and things, but I even have taken out like brown rice and stuff. But it's all what works for you and what you're trying to accomplish. But yeah, a guy like you who doesn't have to worry about putting on weight, like I feel like you have great metabolism probably. So it's like eating those couple racks of ribs isn't necessarily
if things change. Am I going to be able to get out of those habits? Because that adds up really quick if you're not training like you are.
That's the dangerous side
if
of it,
Michael
right?
Phelps
started drinking
6,000
beer
to 8,000 calories a day,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden he's not doing 3 direct workouts a day, and has the habits of people run into that all the time. And so yeah, it's about making like routine changes for me as well, just so I'm not building those bad habits. Because I'm not always going to be racing this competitively. I'm not always going to have time to put in that long run on a Sunday. And
absolutely.
So it's all learning. I mean, going out to New Zealand, everyone's like, wow, you must be in amazing shape and whatever else because you're running mountains all the time. But I was away from a lot of my like home routines that I really value now. And you also start getting into other routines. And I'm starting to realize how important habits like are towards your success. It's not, it's about 20% dedication, and then the rest of it is like building habits or taking habits away. So you want you want to know why someone's successful, it's like how they've kind of created their habits.
Yeah. Sometimes it's nice to press that
the
reset
psychology
button.
of habits is so interesting. I'm starting to really delve into it, but yeah, it's good.
Building habits and being successful. One of the things I wanted to ask is, what is the biggest obstacle you've had to overcome in your life?
I think maybe the unknown, right? And knowing that you have the passion and you have the work ethic and, you think you have so much to give, you just need the venue to do it, and not knowing exactly what that is. I think the obstacle of kind of believing that like things are going to work out and everything for a while. Yeah, I would say that was like a big obstacle to overcome. In terms of injuries, I had a concussion for about a month straight. I couldn't do anything. If I walked fast, I would get like a head rush.
Wow.
And I'll tell you, the day I could finally like go on a stationary bike and not feel the sensation of a headache, and then going out for a run for the first time, and I was pretty young, but it just made me like appreciate. It's like when you're sick, you realize like how much you appreciate not being sick, but then when you are feeling fine,
you take it.
You're
for
not
granted.
as thankful, right? Yeah. And like that was a big not setback. I wasn't like in any kind of competitive thing, but I think I really value it in terms of everything else now, and I see how quickly people, when things get stressful, like around exam time or like work's getting busy or whatever, like fitness and health is like one of the first things that is cut out of the like day, and you can't be the person you are without putting time towards yourself. Yeah. So that's just like a non-negotiable now, and I feel it's not like, oh, Mick, all you do is work out or whatever else. It's just like it's part of my day, and
I feel like it should be part of everyone's day.
If you appreciate who I am,
in some form or another,
I'm probably in the mindset that you enjoy the most after I've sweat in some way, or enjoyed time with me in an activity, right? So, in terms of like biggest obstacle to overcome, I think, it's just kind of been like just realizing that, you are kind of in control of what you want to put your time towards, and that it's okay if not everyone understands what, if no one respects what you're doing, or someone doesn't understand why you're doing something, it's okay. Like not everyone has to like be like,
you don't need everyone's approval.
No, it's not. It's not like, hey, it's really cool that you fit in time for this or whatever else, and you don't need to explain it to people or why you enjoy it or how many things you've learned from doing it, and they can still be your friends. They can still be, it's just the dialogue's different, and the right people will value it, and really those are the people that you need to appreciate.
I just realized something while you were saying that. It's trajectory, and I realized in my own life there's certain times that I've been part of a negative trajectory, and it's that momentum that just brings you down and down and down. And some people hit, I've seen people hit it, just the lows of the low.
It's where not really their fault either. Like it's sometimes the zone, the people that you hang out with. Your lifestyle, like we said, like people who are humble, whatever, you attract the people that are like you. But if you get started on that negative train, then you attract people like you, and it becomes a self-serving group, and you have whatever issues that stem within the group. It starts to bring you down lower, and so it can easily have that negative trajectory to just a place, a pit, a hell, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, you can hit those negative spots, and I've definitely you almost are bound to hit those at certain points in your life. Is just hit lows where you realize something needs to change. Right. So, and then you can change your trajectory too. You can be at that bottom and say, well, this didn't work. Totally. Whatever I'm doing. And if you're willing to take that time to critically self-assess and say, what can I change? What should I change? Who should I change? Even the music you listen to sometimes, like you got to be conscious about everything that you're doing, and then say,
this is what I want to accomplish. This is the one thing. This is something I want to work towards. And maybe other things come along the way. And so whatever your purpose, whatever your star, whatever the thing that your goal, whatever you're aiming at can often take you out of whatever pit that you were in and bring you to a world that you didn't even expect. And I would say I've been through that multiple times, but I feel much more satisfied and fulfilled with my life now than I ever have before, which is
I'm sure if
such
you
an
talk
amazing
to
thing.
Like quite a few people, like everyone will have had something like that and a realization and everything, but I think certain people realize it earlier on, and then some people get really far back and realize they're doing certain things habit-wise to like counterbalance it, and nothing's really helping. And it's just changing those little things. Like I'm sure when you kind of decided that you wanted to lose some weight and whatever else, it's like, you know, you knew you could have changed things earlier, but it's like, when does that really change?
Yeah.
But now you're kind of like looking at the next stage is like, okay, I did this. Like you see something going that way and you just change it.
A lot
quicker.
of it for me is me trying to externalize all my problems or project all my problems onto something else instead of trying to take accountability for it.
Right. Yeah.
And so I eventually learned, and now even when I'm in one area, if I gain a bit of weight now, or if I'm not strong enough in a certain area, I know that's not anyone's fault except my own, and that I need to own up for that and do something that's going to fix it, and not just complain.
Everyone listening to this can relate to that. It's cool. I'm sure you talk about your personal situations and that, and it's, you know, not everyone has had tons of it or is as self-reflective, but eventually people get into it. But
yeah, you got to take that extreme ownership with Jocko Willink thing and his book, but you got to take that extreme ownership of your own life is one of maybe the biggest things that you can learn. Is anything that you do, like you can optimize your entire life and you can be productive and or you can live that complacent life of just like, okay, I get home, I'm tired, so I watch TV, I don't work out, I eat unhealthy, and then I go to work the next day and I dread work, and it's easy to get caught up in that, that complacency.
That becomes your habit.
Yeah.
And that becomes the way you view the world. And I see that with so many people, and you want to shake them, but you know that you can't necessarily reach everybody. And sometimes it's like, if you were to say something, they might try and bring you down because that's their reality. They think everybody has to live that way often. It's like, oh, everybody dreads going to work. Everybody dreads.
It doesn't have to be that way.
Everybody eats unhealthy. Everybody goes drinking all weekend and comes back on Monday and is hungover from their binge drinking on the weekend. Like, it's so easy to get caught up in that lifestyle. I've definitely been at least close to there, if not there, or even worse in some aspects. But it's crazy when you just start to you take that extreme ownership and you go, from the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep, I'm working towards what I want to change in the world, with myself, with helping people, with whatever speaks to you, whatever your goal is. Like, once you start to work towards that, it's it inspires you to live fully, which is such an awe-inspiring and amazing thing.
Yeah, and you're constantly getting better at it, or learning how to, it doesn't just happen overnight.
Yeah,
and you can't always be like as present. It's hard to always be like, you can listen to a good podcast, whatever, and you're like, oh, I agree with this so much. But, like, things get stressful during the day. Things are coming at you. You're caught up in this. Someone's asking you this. You're not like, oh, yeah, like in this podcast, they were saying to just like, whatever it is. And so it's like a mindset, but also being okay if it's, just learning from it.
Yeah, it's getting back to that base. Yeah. If you have and I find it, like, running can be that, meditation can be that. There's a lot of even walking, I find, is a very, like, you can find your center again in a lot of different activity. Even working out has that effect of just the stress of the day can be put into something, or if you're feeling down, all of a sudden you got endorphins kicking, and you make progress in the gym and you have that as an elated feeling. So there's so many things that you can take from exercise specifically, but even that mindset.
Your thoughts, like, when you're just like, you're walking or something and your thought goes towards something negative or something you're not happy with or different things. And then all of a sudden you're like, your energy's down and whatever else. And then you're like, and you're kind of stuck on the same topic for a while, and you realize like how you're projecting yourself and just everything. And then all of a sudden you switch what you're thinking about, and it's like, you don't feel so terrible or like unmotivated.
Yeah, so that's actually an active thing people can do, is try to catch yourself when you start to be negative, or when you talk to, and I still do it to this day, but I try to catch myself. When I start complaining or something, I'm like, oh, why am I doing that?
Right.
Why am I not looking at the positive of this? Right.
And you start hanging out with like people, like you said, like you realize how much less there is those like topics of talking about other people or being negative or like bringing up an excuse. And then when you go back to like a group that, it's not their fault. It's just what that group has kind of known to be like interacting. And then you
negativity breeds negativity.
You're like, I've been around those people, and every comment I make is optimistic. Like they'll say something, some kind of complaint, or then you realize like you're literally stopping them every time. They're just constantly like what kind of conversations are you having throughout? But it's just what you're exposed to, and when you move away from it, you realize how bad it can be.
Yeah.
And again, like you just talk about the people you're with, like the dialogue is different. It's just the comments are different, and people are excited for you for different reasons, and whatever it is. I mean, even if you just like love watching the Maple Leafs be terrible at hockey, a Leafs fan. Are you a Leafs fan?
No, okay. Not at all.
I love that.
But
comment.
They'll talk about it for forever, right? And then that's just it's the dialogue and what you want to talk about, and they're excited about it. And
we just lost all our Leafs listeners, if there were any.
I don't think there's any Leafs listeners.
Well,
if you are,
there's got to be one. I feel like there's
you.
like 1 in 3 people are a Leafs fan, just somewhat. And it's not even like you're a partial fan. You're either, one thing about Leafs fans is like they're great fans. They're
diehards.
Yeah, they love it, and they stick true to it. And we talk about like sticking with something. Like, they can be terrible. They can be in the playoffs or whatever else. There can be there's always drama behind it, but there's that like loyalty, and it's just interesting. Everyone wants to talk about it. And anyways, I'm obviously a big sports fan. Like I love watching. I actually really enjoy watching athletes' background training, like routines and everything. I get a lot out of it. And NHL is a whole different beast if you look at like different training styles and in players. And yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, one of the last questions I wanted to ask. I know we're well over the 2-hour mark, but
we can cut out the Leafs conversation.
It's honest truth. The single best piece of advice you would give someone who's trying to better their life.
Well, maybe like it's like taking what we've talked about from a bunch of things. I think that comes to mind is like start realizing where you need to be spending time, and find people that also want to spend time doing those things. It doesn't have to be one person that's going to change your life. It's like, you want to get better at cooking or eat better, like start talking to people that already do it, or start doing things where you're going to be exposed to people that are doing it. So if you want to better yourself, you need to surround yourself and not be scared to start at like chapter 1. And don't compare yourself to someone else's like chapter 20. Just know that you're going there, and you'll probably get there quicker than this person did as well, because of what life is like now. You have, knowledge is there. Everyone knows how to lose weight. Everyone knows that they should be getting a certain amount of sleep. Everyone knows they should have better posture. And you can look up how to do it. It's putting that action towards it. So I think it's like realizing that now we're in such routine to like make a quick action or anything. It's like, it's having that X factor of like action.
Yeah.
Action, and then surrounding yourself with the right stuff. That's it. It's like being able to make that initial move and not get, don't be that quick sparkler and it goes really intense and then it's out. Like just get into it slowly.
I really like that analogy with a chapter. I literally started writing. I want to write a book.
Yeah.
It's one of my goals for the next year.
Nice.
And I started chapter 1 yesterday. So
you
literally take action.
What's the
Start
book
chapter
called?
1. I have an idea
Okay.
of what it's going to be called. I actually have to bring
That's
it up.
okay. Sometimes I think people, I heard a good conversation about like book titles and everything. And people said like, people spend so much time on book title and whatever else and not enough time on like make it first. Then
A lot of good
will come up.
authors don't even have a title for the book until
Right.
after they're done
Right.
writing it.
Right.
And I think it might be that. One of the playful words that I always use with my training is savage. And
Yeah.
I like it for the fact that and I use it in a playful way in the sense like just train like a savage, just
Right.
go all out,
Yeah.
and then just do a bunch of things. So I said, live like a savage. The journey down the path to success is in parenthesis right now, but that's what I'm looking at, or finding your way down the path is this as
Cool.
the second part. But we'll see
It'll come
exactly
to you.
what
It'll
pans
come to you.
out.
Don't,
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I'm excited. It's just a way I just want to share with people and help people in any way possible. And I see that as being a cool way. I never really thought I'd start writing. I've never seen myself as a great writer. One person called me confounded in my writing style, and I've always taken that personal because I am definitely a tangential thinker. I go out into oblivion and then I try and come back around. And
At
then
least you try to come back.
I try and come back.
Yeah.
I try and come back to whatever the initial point was. But I find, because that's how I view life, though. It's all about the adventure of how you get there. It doesn't, there's maybe people that are more direct and have a more like A to B to C kind of life thought. But I'm like, it's all about whatever that path is that gets you there. And then
as
you'll
with
figure it out.
anything in life, not everyone's going to agree with your writing style. And I think the most important thing, and when it comes to writing, is that you find your own voice in writing and
Right.
not write to how other people want you to write, because then it's going to sound unnatural.
Yeah. Got to be genuine.
Yeah.
I did want to do one more thing before we finished up, and it's a little bit selfish, but it will help any obstacle course racer or Spartan, and it's just shotgun style Spartan questions. So what is the number one problem, weakness, or difficulty people have with Spartan races or obstacle course?
Running.
So run a lot.
100% it's running. Like, I won't explain it much, but
Yeah.
the amount of people that finish a race and are like, oh, the obstacles were easy, it was all good, but I need to work on my running. And it's like, all right, there are 5 kilometers of running, there are 0.6 kilometers of obstacles. Like, what should you work on first? Or
The 80% or the 20%?
Yeah.
You should probably work
running,
on the 80%.
100% running.
Is there anything specific that I should be working on that I may not have thought of? And maybe what would you recommend as a basic training regimen for newbie Spartans?
Pull strength, hanging strength beyond dead hanging.
Yeah.
And putting yourself in situations where you are actually, if you cannot pull your own weight up, then start doing things early to build that strength up and not realize 2 weeks before a race that you can't hang from monkey bars or pull yourself up from a rope, and know the steps that, strength training that you need to get there, right?
Yeah.
If you have good pull strength, if you have great body awareness, then you're not going to put yourself into vulnerable positions. You see people that are just awkward movers and they have the strength and fitness to get through an obstacle, but they just put themselves into bad body positioning that it's way more challenging. So
Yeah. And then for newbie Spartans, I came up with a couple, but cardio, running, hills, weight training, Spartan-oriented workouts, yoga, grip strength, so something for flexibility, and then climbing and weighted runs might be a little bit more to the extreme side. I'm gonna invest in a vest today, a weighted vest, and I think that that's something I can use to push my training too.
I would say make race simulations, but don't make that the way you're going to get better at Spartan racing. You you need to test your fitness in those workouts every once in a while, but do directed workouts based on each individual skill to improve fully, because you're not improving your running if you're jogging in between a few exercises
I don't jog.
BT. Yeah. Anyway, it's something that like a lot of people will show, oh, beast mode workout, or this is my Spartan training workout. And yeah, it's tough. It's super hard, but you're just kind of beating yourself up, and you're working at like a 70% capacity through that whole workout, because you're just like going in different things. And that is a race. But if you want to improve certain skills, it needs to be directed. So split up your workouts into certain styles, or have a focus to your workout of like where you're really trying to improve, and then build around it, and start early. Don't start really early. Look away. Your hardest workout should be 3 weeks before your actual race.
So I'm already past that point.
Yep.
So this week coming up, I shouldn't go as crazy as
intensity's fine, but less volume, and don't do anything that you wouldn't usually do. Yeah, you're not going to see the fitness gains from your workout you do this week or next at the race.
Yeah, I'm definitely volume-wise the week before is to come back down.
Keep the intensity. I mean, it depends on how much workout you're actually doing. So for someone that runs consistently all the time, they go into, they do a run workout Wednesday or Thursday before a race, or they go for a little run the day before. It's not going to affect them. But someone else who barely runs and goes out for a 6-mile run the day before because someone told them that's a good warm-up shakeout run or something, but they're going to feel it the next day. But those people probably aren't trying to win it, so who cares? Just be active throughout it and enjoy it and learn from it. Yeah.
Perfect. Can you explain lactic threshold training? So it's just
So it's at the effort that your heart rate and your oxygen system cannot. Basically, it's the output of your muscles being beyond the point of where your body can find energy. And so it creates lactic acid, which is the after burn of an actual chemical like transferring. So you get the afterburn because it is trying to burn that energy and give you an energy source, because you're performing at such a high level that naturally you're not going to keep up with it alone. So the problem with ATP is it creates this lactic acid, which goes in between your muscle fibers and makes them feel like they're just becoming bricks if you just continue to go. So you can challenge your threshold, and you can also teach your body how to flush out that lactic acid while still doing activity. So it's just finding its exposure to getting to that threshold, challenging that threshold to be a little further on. And let's say you're on a hard hill and you have a 100-pound sandbag, and maybe you're going a little too hard up that hill. When you finish that sandbag, you can still jog in between the race or keep going, and your body will flush out that lactic acid, or maybe more efficient to get up there without falling apart too early. So threshold training is not fun. I would say most people that think sometimes they are threshold training don't even know the effort you need to put in to really challenge that. So basically, if you want to train your threshold, it should be past a minute. That's when the energy system changes again at a certain effort. So that's when your body, let's say, tries to start using oxygen. That's why you can sprint for a while and you don't start breathing heavy.
So are you just changing between like anaerobic and aerobic?
Right. I mean, that is a Spartan race, right? Yeah. It's energy management. So you're in this aerobic state, so using oxygen for energy, but you have these spurts of like high power, high intensity in between the start of the race, whatever else. So your body has to deal with all of these like changes in energy systems while you're in this state. It's not like a triathlon where you're on a bike, your pace. It's a safe pace. You can keep that consistent pace. It's all over the place. You're on single track, you're uphill, you're downhill, you're swimming, you're pulling up, whatever else. So threshold training is maybe not something for like someone that's just completing a race to really focus on, but if you have a strong threshold and you expose yourself to it more often, you will get better.
On the same line, how fast the top racers run an average mile or kilometer?
Oof. I mean, you start looking at like the background stories of some of the top racers. Some of them are Olympic trial 5K runners. Some of them are, sub 14-minute 5K runners. Some of them hold records for certain mountain runs. Some of them are winners of 100-mile races plus whatever else. So I would say at the top level, you're running under a 5:30-minute mile, like through any of the flats. Then
that's crazy.
The turnover rate in between obstacles, that's when like transitions, maybe you're going a little slower just to kind of like recover, because running a 5:30-minute mile or whatever your pace, like to just allow people to think of this personally, like whatever a pace would be where you get to that breath state where you're like you're really wheezing into it, like you're breathing, you couldn't talk to someone, whatever else, like that's the output you need to be almost in, but you're just balancing on that red line where you don't fall apart. And then, people can finish a race and say, hey, that was easy, I completed all the obstacles. It's like, well, but did you win? Right? Like, did you walk in between and do the rope climb at 120 beats per minute, or did you go into a rope climb at 180 beats per minute? And did you not think twice and just jump up to it, and your muscles are like, whoa, we were in an aerobic state, like we're not ready to jump and climb and get into strength. And so it's just a balance. Yeah.
What should I expect going into my first Spartan Super? And
did I just scare you, by the way? Saying all this?
Well, I have certain goals that I want to accomplish, and that is, 5-minute 30 seems ridiculous because that pace is, I'm at about a 7:30 was my goal going into this, which I think for an 8 mile, I can go a little faster.
There are points, and it all depends on the course. Like I've done a course where you literally are power hiking the whole mountain. You're not running at all. Your pace is like a 9-minute mile, the whole race, mostly. Running downhill is a little different, but you got to be pretty courageous to run at the paces some guys do and have the skill. It's a skill. But if you can keep up a 7:30-minute mile throughout in between the obstacles, you're going to do fine. Okay. It's
so what's a realistic goal then
for Red Deer?
Yeah.
You're running elite.
Yeah.
Like first. See, some people will say top 10, but then you don't know who's showing up. You don't know, there's a lot of guys that are like, hey, I've podiumed before or at a Spartan race. And you're like, okay, that's impressive. Like, it's great. It takes fitness to podium, but you can name 50 other guys that if they showed up at that race, they would beat them. Right. Mm-hmm. So maybe not putting an actual number goal on it is like the best thing, because you never know who's going to show up or how many people there are. But I would say go for a percentage based on.
That's funny. That's my exact idea. So I want to finish in the top 10%.
Yeah, great. So look at the elite wave and then kind of go from there.
Yeah.
And I would say it would be, you want to go top 10 in
top 10% of finishers.
I'd say I don't know. I would say top 20 would be an excellent thing. And then I would say you don't finish the race thinking you could have put more out there.
So that's my other side of it is no matter what, I'm going to feel like I've won at the end if I leave everything out on the course and do everything I can to like push myself into that discomfort zone and see if I can be on the edge of
I mean, don't go Rambo the first 2 minutes of the race, because you're not going to enjoy the rest of the race. So be smart at the start and then gauge your effort. And I would say that is way more valuable than plus passing people is easier than getting passed, right? Mentally. Yeah. So if you start out great, and anyone can sprint with anyone for a couple minutes or keep within distance, but then all of a sudden, if you're walking and everyone else is jogging by you, like, you want to put your mind in a bad state. That's, you feel more pain when people are passing you and certain things. There's a lot of science behind that as well. So I would say just be smart and then kind of reflect on your body. But at the same time, at points in the race, just ask yourself, like, am I racing? I mean, it's your goal to do well. It's not everyone's, but if you are going in it with the goal to race and do well, I think it's just I'll ask myself that. If I'm in the lead, I can't judge off anyone's pace or whatever else. It's am I racing right now, or am I just
going through
moving?
The motion?
Yeah. So, and then every once in a while I'm like, okay, yeah, I can pick up the pace a bit.
So the last thing was just a comment that I saw in an interview you did with, I think it was the Free Press, but I loved one of the things you said was just not stopping during a workout is one of your workout regimens. And I just thought that was, I'm doing something right if I'm doing that. And that's really how I've based this.
Not stopping is not the intensity is just insane, because there is value in adding recovery in between, right?
It depends what you're training. Yeah.
But for me, it's just not stopping, as in, don't bring your phone in with you. Don't, if you're going to chat with someone, have a quick chat or chat after, before, but don't say you went to the gym for 2 hours and you only did 15 minutes of real activity.
Yeah.
So for me, with my schedule and everything, I don't have time to put 3 hours into a gym anyway, but so I've always just there's always purpose in between everything I'm doing. So yeah.
Awesome. Those are my shotgun style questions.
I know I explained myself a little bit. I'm not really good at those one word answers.
Well, some of them needed that explanation too, and asked for it. So just in conclusion, where can we find Mikhail?
Mikhail.
Come on, really.
God damn it.
We've been through this.
Mikhail. And I said that in my head before to make sure I did it right.
You know what? I correct people all the time, and it will be literally right after I meet them. Oh, hi, what's your name? Oh, Mikhail. Oh, hey, Mikhail. It'll be right after. It's just it's
Mikhail.
It reads like Mikhail. Don't feel like it's say Mick.
So website, social media, training.
I think Instagram in terms of any questions, or following the journey of me as an athlete. I try to kind of show around it, but at the same time, obviously, I have students following along and everything. So there's nothing to me as an athlete, I think, true on there, but also just my outdoor lifestyle and everything like that. So my Instagram is at Mick, M-I-K, _ fit with 2 T's, F-I-T-T, Mick Fit. And then honestly, that's for sure the best way to get a hold of me. I'm on Facebook, but you can reach out, do everything on there.
And anything, so what are your sponsors? I know that there's Gorp Bars and
Gorp Bar. Athleti, which is an endurance-based supplement and product-based online store. So it's all made for endurance athletes. So any kind of gels, any kind of endurance powders, multivitamins, that kind of stuff. All Athleti, Gorp, Elite Force, which is training gear, durable training gear. So think training sandbags, stuff like that. So obviously it's nice to have really good high quality sandbags to train with.
Yeah.
And then a few other small sponsorships just from in terms of product. So Mondetta performance gear, which is kind of European kind of transitional sportwear. So they've got some great things to work out in, but also really comfortable, just activewear, and especially being a trainer, being a gym teacher. I still like to wear nice clothes, but that are actually made to move in and are comfortable. Yeah.
And then do you want to share the gym and the different nights that you?
Yeah. So I run Weapon Factory out of Movement, Fitness, and Performance. We've got a great facility. It's pretty central downtown, and it's every Thursday night at 7 p.m. And come down, or again, if you check out on Instagram, there's a few
links to everything,
video montages of what it looks like. Yeah.
Anything else that you want to share before we're closing up?
No, I think I just really appreciate having good conversations with people, and I like that people are starting to use podcasts in the right way, just to really connect with other like-minded people. And even though you may not feel you have everyone in your life that kind of agrees or is in the same mindset that you want to be or anything, it's okay. You're going to find the right people. And if you connected at all with any of this conversation, you will start finding the right people if you just are basing your life around it.
Well, we talked about this with Lexi on our last podcast too, and just building that community of like-minded people around too. It's just going to help you progress even further, right?
Yeah.
And this, I'm realizing it now, but this is the first time we've reached outside of immediate circle to have a guest on.
Okay.
And I couldn't be more excited and happy to have a like-minded person passionate about obstacle course racing, fitness, and helping people. And it's from first conversation that we've had over social media to meeting you and actually checking out the OCR. It's just been awesome. So I wanted to thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
And sharing your story. It's been awesome learning with you and from you. And
I think if people even weren't interested in obstacle racing, I think people could get a lot out of this in terms of just whatever their passion was or whatever they want to work towards. So
I think
that's good.
It's all adaptable, and that's something that we hope to achieve with this podcast, is have people from various backgrounds who are successful in their own right and just share their experiences, their successes, failures, and everything that they've been through on their journeys.
We're just getting started.
Yeah,
we are just getting started.
It was very insightful, and you also get the award of longest podcast as of right now.
And number 10. so many things.
I'm always competing against people. I knew what the longest one was deep down. Yeah.
So just before we finish her up, you can find us on social media. Be the Change YPS on both Facebook and Instagram. Email, as always, b.the.change.yps@gmail.com. I love throwing in the dots. It's my favorite thing. And that's all. Thanks for listening.
Farewell.
Yeah.